Chapter 52-47. There were more than 100 spirit beasts of various sizes, and each of them had a variety of appearances. However, there was a handsome man lying lazily on the high platform in the middle. That was its master. Master. Kappa walked over and knelt down respectfully. Why are you so slow? The handsome man frowned slightly. If it was in the past, he would have punished Kappa severely. However, today was a special day. For once he was magnanimous. He ordered, "Come nourish my holy water bead. Let everyone have a look." The handsome man took out a water droplet from his pocket as he spoke. However, his water droplet was much bigger than Lin Yi's, and even the light it emitted was different. Lin Yi's water droplet was clear and transparent, but the man's water droplet emitted an indescribable holy light, making people want to worship it subconsciously. The only drawback was that there was a shallow crack in it. This greatly reduced the light it emitted. Otherwise, it would be much more holy and solemn than it was now. Yes. Kappa respectfully took the holy water bead from the handsome man's hand. He began to nourish the holy water bead with the innate ability of the Kappa clan. The principle was similar to becoming invisible in water. It also covered the holy water bead with a thin layer of water film. However, this water film would soon be completely absorbed by the holy water bead. Therefore, the Kappa had to continuously use this ability until it was exhausted. Don't you still have a water bead? Just use it to nourish the holy water bead. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Seeing this, the handsome man frowned again. The holy water bead could directly absorb an entire normal water bead. Although it couldn't repair the crack, it could at least make it shine brightly in a very short time. That was the reason why he summoned Kappa to meet with him. Hearing this, Kappa panicked. He stammered, "Master, that water bead had some problems not long ago. It needs to be nourished before it can be used." Trash. You can't even handle such a small matter. The handsome man's face darkened. He coldly snorted, "After this is over, you will receive 100 lashes." "Yes. Thank you for the punishment, master." Kappa quickly replied. Under Kappa's nourishment, the holy light of the holy water bead gradually grew stronger. In the beginning, the spirit beasts of all sizes did not pay much attention to it. However, when the holy water pearl's radiance enveloped the entire place, the spirit beasts instantly quietened down and fixed their gazes on the holy water pearl. He could not move a single inch. Suddenly, an abrupt voice sounded, "Oh? Are you showing off your treasures here again?" The spirit beasts were taken aback. Who would dare to speak in such a frivolous tone at a time like this? Is that person tired of living? Turning his head to look, what he saw was actually a large, white, and tender worm. However, this worm was extremely strange. On its back was a pair of wings that symbolized the primordial Gomang race. At that moment, it was flying over fearlessly. According to the rules of the spirit beast world, unless they had been informed in advance, flying above their heads at such a low altitude was tantamount to provoking them. This was especially true during such an important banquet. Such behavior was simply courting death. Where did this bug come from? How dare you barge into Lord Protector's wedding banquet? A black ape with a triangle on its head immediately leaped up. This was a rare opportunity and it wanted to perform well. Although the Lord Protector had gathered them together in the name of the wedding, with so many big and small spiritual beasts together, there was bound to be a clear distinction between the strong and the weak. With its strength comparable to that of the gold core stage, it naturally did not dare to be lonely. It was worried that it would not have a chance to show its face, and as a result, this reckless insect came to its door. Judging from its appearance, this three-horned ape was much more powerful and domineering than the insect. Its strong killing intent made people not dare to approach it, especially its triangular horn tips, which were emitting a cold light. Each horn tip was condensed with different elements. Water, fire, and wind were fused with each other, and finally condensed into the amazing power of the three-horned horn. The power of this strike was at least comparable to that of a late-stage golden core cultivator. If it were any of the other spirit beasts present, this attack from the three-horned ape was enough to make them retreat. Even if their strength was above it, they would have to weigh it carefully. After all, the power of the three-phase horn thrust was not something to be trifled with. Unfortunately, this time it was facing the brain-eating insect. The brain-eating insect didn't even look at it. Just when it was about to hit itself, an incomparably sharp and sinister claw suddenly appeared on its body. Then it didn't care about the three-faced horn stab and directly clawed at it. Crack! Accompanied by the sound of bones breaking, the triangular horn that the three-horned ape was so proud of was forcibly clawed off. Not only that, even its head was clawed into pieces, and in an instant, it became a mutilated corpse. There was a sudden dead silence, and all the spiritual beasts, without exception, had a dumbfounded expression. The scene just now was too sudden and unexpected. They really could not digest it for a while. What kind of divine being was this insect? In the blink of an eye, the brain-eating insect had flown to the center of the high platform, and the newly grown claw did not hesitate to claw at Kappa. Its target was, of course, not Kappa, but the holy water bead in Kappa's hand. If it wanted the holy water bead, Kappa could not resist at all with its little strength. However, the obstacle it needed to face was not Kappa, but the master behind Kappa. The brain-eating insect's ferocious claw was finally stopped by a white palm. There was no shocking momentum or aftermath. It seemed that the two just clapped their palms lightly, and then they both took a big step back. Tsk, as expected of the Lord Protector. You can actually resolve my attack in such a gentle manner. I admire you. The brain-eating insect flattered without sincerity. Likewise, Lord Envoy is also not bad. After sleeping for hundreds of years, you still have such strength. It's an eye-opener for me. The handsome man had a calm smile on his face. As soon as the voice fell, the audience suddenly burst into an uproar. All the big and small spiritual beasts finally realized the identity of the insect. It turned out to be the Lord Envoy who had been sleeping for hundreds of years. They could not be blamed for their slow reaction. The brain-eating insect had always been elusive, and there were very few spiritual beasts who had seen its face. In addition, its form was complex and ever-changing, and it often slept for hundreds of years, so it was normal for it to not react for a while. However, in this way they felt a little sorry for the three-horned ape just now. It dared to attack the legendary Lord Envoy without asking anything. It deserved to die so miserably. After all, this was a brain-eating insect that could be on equal footing with the Lord Protector in terms of status and strength. Chapter 52-48. Is that so? That's still not as impressive as Lord Protector. You have so many underlings under your command, and you can command hundreds of people with one call. I'm different. I'm a loner with the title of Special Envoy, yet I'm still offended by these small fries. It's really shameful, the brain-eating bug said in an unpredictable tone. Lord Protector is overpraising me. Forgive me for saying too much, but with your reputation as the brain-eating bug, who would dare to be your underling? The handsome man said sarcastically. In the eyes of the brain-eating bug, all spirit beasts were just its food. If they followed it, they might become its rations at any time. Unless there was a hole in their brains, who would dare to be its underling? That's true. I'm a loner so that Lord Protector can be at ease. Unlike Lord Protector, who is loyal to him. However, I also advise you to take it easy, Lord Protector. There are too many people, and if some idiot touches the Lord's reverse scale, I'm afraid even Lord Protector will have to bear the consequences, the brain-eating bug said with a smile. Don't worry about it. Lord Protector, don't tell me you're here just to chat with me? The handsome man looked at it up and down. That's not it. I heard that Lord Protector is getting married and I happen to be nearby. Since we've worked together, I should come and congratulate you, shouldn't I? The brain-eating bug said. That being said, this guy was empty-handed. Not only did he kill the three-horned ape in front of everyone, but he also directly snatched the holy water droplet. No matter how one looked at it, he did not look like he was here to congratulate them. He did not come with good intentions. However, since it said so, the handsome man could not refute it, at least not in public, so he said, Then I have to thank Lord Protector for giving me face. You're welcome. I came empty-handed. As long as Lord Protector doesn't mind, it's fine. After all, I don't have a big family business like you, and I don't have any treasures on hand, so I can only come and support you, the brain-eating bug said. Not at all. It's an honor for Lord Protector to come and support me, the handsome man responded with a faint smile. Oh? It's great that Lord Protector is so understanding, but I have a presumptuous request. I hope Lord Protector can agree to it, the brain-eating bug said. Give him an inch and he wants a mile. This word appeared in the minds of all the spirit beasts present at the same time. The brain-eating insect's behavior was more than that of a hoodlum. It could be said to be a rogue to a certain extent. It was the brain-eating insect. If it was any other spirit beast that dared to be so presumptuous in front of the Lord Protector, they would have died a tragic death. Don't tell me you want my holy water bead? The handsome man said with a faint smile. Can I? The brain-eating bug's eyes lit up. Everyone wanted a treasure like the holy water droplet, and it was no exception. Otherwise it would not have tried to snatch it so blatantly. Mr. Special Envoy, it's fine that you came to my wedding banquet empty-handed, but you actually want my treasures. Is this really appropriate? The handsome man was instantly amused. It doesn't seem appropriate, so forget it. The brain-eating bug gave up quite straightforwardly. Its goal was not the holy water bead, it was just a whim. It immediately said, looking at the overall situation, the one with the most eyes and ears is you, Lord Protector. All the flowers and trees are your eyes and ears. Even the slightest movement on the ground cannot escape your control. So, I would like to trouble Lord Protector to help me find a person. A person? The handsome man was slightly taken aback. Yes, a human cultivator named Lin Yi, the brain-eating bug said directly. When it said this, it did not even think that Lin Yi was in the venue. It was just that it was not easy to detect his primordial spirit state. What? Does Mr. Special Envoy have a grudge against this human? The handsome man asked with interest. He is my food. No one is allowed to touch him except me. Whoever touches him will die. The brain-eating bug threatened unscrupulously. In fact, it was no wonder that it was so concerned about Lin Yi. It rarely failed when it targeted its food, and a mere human was able to escape from under its nose. This was an unprecedented experience. The more this happened, the more it proved that Lin Yi was unique and powerful. For it, this was an unprecedented human food. Once it missed this opportunity, it might be a lifelong regret. What if I don't agree? The handsome man's expression suddenly sank. The brain-eating bug's threat was effective on other spirit beasts, but it had no effect on it. You don't agree? Aren't you afraid that I'll make a scene here? Are you sure that your ancient well of tranquility can withstand my torment? The brain-eating bug sneered and squinted at him. Regardless of who was stronger or weaker, one thing was certain. If they really fought, at least this place would definitely be destroyed into a mess, and the so-called wedding banquet would naturally be ruined. You dare. The handsome man's expression changed. Do you think I dare or not? The brain-eating bug laughed unscrupulously. At the same time, it shed its insect body and turned into an extremely ferocious and terrifying monster. Every part of its body was a horrifying existence copied after it devoured other powerful spirit beasts. This was almost an ultimate killing weapon that gathered the strongest side of all the local spirit beasts. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. For a moment, swords were drawn and bows were drawn. The other spirit beasts present were suddenly at a loss. Although they were considered to be the younger brothers of the Guardian, they could not intervene in such a high-level battle with their strength. Just like the three-horned ape just now, they were at most cannon fodder material. Fortunately, the situation was tense for a moment, but the two sides did not really fight. The handsome man suddenly laughed and said, "All right, isn't it just looking for someone? On account of today's wedding celebration, I'll agree to this small favor." Then thank you, Sir Guardian. The brain-eating bug quickly returned to its harmless insect appearance. It was the complete opposite of the terrifying appearance of a weapon. I won't send you off. The handsome man immediately wanted to send the guest off. Although today was his wedding day, no one could afford to have a bad guest like the brain-eating bug. He was not afraid of the brain-eating bug, but he was afraid that the brain-eating bug would ruin his wedding. Sir Guardian is really ruthless. You didn't even ask me to stay for a drink. In that case, forget it. The brain-eating bug smiled and turned to fly toward the water curtain cave. Seeing that it was so cooperative, all the spirit beasts present, including the handsome man, could not help but sigh in relief. The moodiness of the brain-eating bug really put a lot of pressure on them. If the brain-eating bug did not leave, this wedding banquet would be tormented. Chapter 5249. It said, "Oh, by the way, if you can't find Lin Yi, please help me find the traces of another group of people. I don't know their names, but it'll be fine as long as it's a group of about 10 people." The others did not understand what it meant, but Lin Yi, who was hiding in the corner in his spirit form, felt his heart skip a beat. The brain-eating bug was obviously referring to Cold and the others. Once it started to target Cold and the others, it would be troublesome. Okay. The handsome man agreed very happily this time. It was obvious that he was eager to send the brain-eating bug away as soon as possible. After all, the brain-eating bug was a real plague to him. Thank you very much, but you'd better hurry up. Don't let me wait too long or I'll have to trouble you again. The brain-eating bug left a final threat and left. Now that the brain-eating bug had finally left, the handsome man breathed an imperceptible sigh of relief. He was originally excited to take out the holy water droplet to broaden the horizons of the spirit beasts present, but now he had completely lost the interest. He casually put away the holy water droplet. As for the kappa, it scrambled to the side. Even though it had only been feeding the holy water droplet for a short period of time, it was almost exhausted. At this time, a senior Golden Core stage spirit beast stood up and suggested in front of everyone, "Sir Guardian, the auspicious time has come. Why don't you invite the new madam out for us to see so that we can know who our Madam Guardian is?" "Yes. Quickly invite the new madam out." The other spirit beasts also followed suit. A smile appeared on the handsome man's face when he heard this. Seeing as the spirit beasts were in high spirits, he said, "That's great, it's time for her to meet all of you so that there won't be any misunderstandings in the future. Servants, bring the new madam out." As soon as he said that, 4 gorgeously dressed maids immediately went to the luxurious tent at the back to invite the new madam out. Of course, they were all transformed from spirit beasts, not pure humans. The transformation of a spirit beast into a human form was not absolutely related to its strength realm. It all depended on whether it had the talent in this aspect. Some spirit beasts could not transform into a human form even if they reached a very high realm, but some could do it at the foundation establishment stage just like these 4 maids. At the same time, the wedding banquet finally returned to the festive atmosphere that a wedding banquet should have. All the spirit beasts were laughing and toasting each other, but Lin Yi, who was hiding at the side, felt a little gloomy. It was not surprising that the brain-eating bug was looking for trouble. He was confident enough to escape the brain-eating bug's pursuit, but now the brain-eating bug was targeting Cold and the others, which was really worrying. If that was all, it would be fine. Even if the brain-eating bug really wanted to find Cold and the others, it was not easy to find them. After all, it was difficult to see the situation on the ground even in the air. Unless one's divine sense was strong to a certain extent, otherwise, it was extremely difficult to carry out a large-scale search from the air. This was something that Lin Yi had experienced deeply. However, the problem was that the brain-eating bug's words revealed a piece of information that made Lin Yi tremble in fear. The handsome man in front of him, who was called the Guardian, had many eyes and ears. Almost all the flowers and trees were his eyes and ears. With his help, it was only a matter of time before the brain-eating bug locked onto Cold and the others' location. What should he do then? The last time, the brain-eating bug was too confident, so it let Cold and the others go indifferently. This time it had already failed once. Since it mentioned this, it meant that it would do anything in order to catch Lin Yi. When it really came to that point, it would not be able to fight or escape. Lin Yi would really be helpless. It was urgent. Lin Yi was very anxious. He must come up with a countermeasure as soon as possible, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Fortunately, today was the wedding of the handsome man. With his tense relationship with the brain-eating bug, at least at this time, he would not try his best to find people for the brain-eating bug. Therefore, there was still a little time left for Lin Yi to think of a solution. Of course, it was only a little. Just when Lin Yi was desperately thinking of a solution, the new wife finally came out. When the Guardian's wife walked up the high platform and slowly walked to the side of the handsome man, the atmosphere suddenly boiled. At the same time, Lin Yi was stunned when he saw the person's appearance. The new wife was actually Duanmuyu. All the spirit beasts toasted the new wife in unison. After the toast, they immediately started discussing. One of them stood up and asked on behalf of the spirit beasts, "Lord Guardian, why is the new wife a human?" Even if they were both in human form, the aura of a human and a spirit beast was completely different. Any spirit beast could see that the new wife was definitely a pure human. A dignified Lord Guardian would actually marry a human woman as his wife. This was really strange. Admittedly, they all knew that the Lord Protector loved to transform into a human form. In fact, even the personal attendants of the Lord Protector would choose whether they could transform into a human form as their primary screening condition. Their actions were no different from that of a human. However, this was at most a preference and it could not change the nature of a spiritual beast. More importantly, if the Lord Guardian were to marry a human woman, what kind of offspring would be created? Humans, spirit beasts, or half-beastmen? The handsome man glanced at the crowd and slowly said, "If it wasn't a human woman, why would I hold such a grand wedding banquet?" Generally speaking, spirit beasts' weddings were not so particular. Even if a ceremony was held at the level of a Lord Guardian, it would definitely be a ceremony unique to spirit beasts. It would not be a wedding banquet like humans. Now everything was for the new wife. To be precise, it was for Duanmuyu. Then, Lord Guardian, can you introduce our Lord Guardian's wife to everyone? A spirit beast asked curiously. All right, I'll satisfy your curiosity. The handsome man looked at Duanmuyu with admiration and said in a proud tone, "She was originally a disciple of the Archaic Alliance's Yiling sect. Her name is Duanmuyu. This time, she came here by chance and was originally going to be a human's tribute. However, I suddenly realized that her physique and mental cultivation method were very compatible with mine. It just so happened that I wanted to test the legendary dual cultivation technique, so she became my wife. I see. When Lin Yi heard this, he suddenly realized why Duanmuyu would appear in this place. However, he was very curious about Duanmuyu's current state. This strange woman with a masculine temperament was actually obediently becoming a bride and had no intention of resisting at all. Chapter 5250. This was Lin Yi's first reaction, and it was also the most likely situation. However, he carefully observed Duanmuyu's demeanor and behavior. There was no difference from before. At most, there was a little more uneasiness and shyness. This was a matter of course. It was impossible for anyone to not be shy when they became someone else's bride, even if it was an extraordinary woman like Duanmuyu. However, how could Duanmuyu really be willing to marry a spirit beast? Could it be the legendary love at first sight? Lin Yi was confused, but at this moment, Duanmuyu was next to the handsome man. Even if he was puzzled, he did not dare to go over and ask. After all, the handsome man was an existence that could contend with the brain-eating bug head-on. If Lin Yi's spirit were to go over rashly, it was very likely that he would be noticed by the other party. By then, it would be difficult for him to escape. What's more, Lin Yi had no time to care about Duanmuyu's business now. It was more important to find a way to solve the current predicament. If it weren't for this unexpected trip, if he didn't hear the words of the brain-eating bug, Lin Yi might continue to look for Cold and the others step by step. However, he had changed his mind now. If he could not ensure that he could hide himself, even if he found Cold and the others, it would be useless. It might even make the situation worse because the brain-eating bug would definitely chase after him. Unless he could cut off the source of the brain-eating bug's discovery, which was the handsome man in front of him who claimed to be able to control everything. Unfortunately, this was an absolute false proposition. If Lin Yi had the ability to deal with this handsome man, then he would not need to be so afraid of the brain-eating bug. After all, the two of them were at the same level. At the same time, the warm atmosphere of celebration continued. Under the instigation of the spirit beasts, the handsome man even crossed cups with Duanmuyu in public. To Lin Yi's surprise, Duanmuyu actually did it obediently and did not show the slightest displeasure. This was really strange. The wedding banquet did not last too long. It was not that these spirit beasts were self-restrained. It was because the time had come, and they began a new round of collective uproar. In the bridal chamber. In the bridal chamber. In the bridal chamber. Lin Yi blushed with shame. To be honest, he was also quite interested in this matter. If it weren't for the fear of being discovered and the urgency of the current situation, he wouldn't even mind going in and joining in the fun. He was very curious about how Duanmuyu, a strange woman with a man's heart, would behave in the bridal chamber. No matter what, it must be very interesting. You're having fun in the bridal room? Since it's a traditional human ceremony, let's do it in the bridal chamber. The handsome man readily accepted the advice. However, just as they escorted the handsome man and Duanmuyu to the luxurious tent at the back, a very strange sound suddenly came from a corner that no one paid attention to. To be precise, it was a hysterical scream. The source of the scream came from Fei Yangming, but it wasn't his fault. Anyone who was dragged into the water by a monster like the Kappa and woke up in the middle of a large group of ferocious spirit beasts would scream instinctively, unless he was a mute. However, when Fei Yangxing came back to his senses, he even had the heart to kill himself. If he didn't scream with his hidden position, the possibility of these spirit beasts discovering him was not high. It was unlikely that these spiritual beasts who were immersed in the melody of the nuptial chamber would notice him, but now he had become the only focus of attention. Human. The group of spirit beasts looked at each other in dismay. If it was any other place, they would have swarmed forward and taken it. However, this was not the case here. This was the Lord Protector's territory. Only the Lord Protector had the final say in everything. If they acted on their own, the only outcome would be death. The handsome man's face also showed a little surprise. However, his eyes only stayed on Fei Yangming for less than a moment, and then he moved away, faintly saying, "Patrol B." Here. Dozens of patrol bees suddenly flew up in the field. How did he get in? The handsome man asked in a mysterious tone. All the patrol bees fell silent. Today was a big day and so many spirit beasts were gathered in one place. They absolutely did not dare to let down their guard. Every single patrolling bee was already doing their best to stay alert. They had already done everything they could. From the beginning to the end, they did not relax for even a moment. They thought that everything was foolproof, but they did not expect to miss a living person. How was this possible? All right, I'll cut myself in half. the handsome man said indifferently. At first, the spiritual beasts did not understand what he meant. It was only when the patrol bees began to kill each other that they finally understood. The so-called suicide of half of the patrol bees meant that half of the patrol bees had to kill each other. As expected, the Lord Protector was as strict as ever. Fei Yangxing's scalp went numb as he watched the patrol bees turn into corpses and fall from the sky. Until now, he still had not figured out the situation. He did not even notice Duanmuyu's existence. He only knew that he was dead this time. That man was so cruel and merciless to his own subordinates. As an intruder, he would not be able to live past today. Sure enough, before the patrol bees had finished killing each other, the handsome man had already made a judgment on Fei Yangxing's fate. Kill him. If it was any other time, even if a human cultivator was caught by them, they would not kill him because they still had to offer human tributes to the Lord. However, it was different today. Today was the handsome man's wedding. This reckless human dared to disturb his wedding. Of course he had to die. As soon as the handsome man finished speaking, the spirit beast closest to him picked Fei Yangxing up and was about to snap his neck without any hesitation. Fei Yangxing was scared out of his wits. He could not even scream at that moment, and could only struggle with all his might in vain. Lin Yi hesitated when he saw this scene. He was worried about Lung Lung and the others. At this moment, even Lung Lung and the others could not solve the crisis. If he rashly rescued Fei Yangxing, not to mention that there were so many spirit beasts present, especially powerful existences at the same level as the brain-eating bug, the success rate was very low. Even if he succeeded by a fluke, Lin Yi would inevitably be exposed. How could he deal with the next crisis? Chapter 52-51. Just as Lin Yi was thinking about taking a risk, Duanmuyu suddenly spoke from afar. Wait. All the spirit beasts turned to look at her. This was the first time the new guardian wife had spoken. The handsome man asked, Madam, do you have something to say? Since it's a marriage, I can't leave out my family. Let him go, he's my family, Duanmuyu said. Duanmuyu said. When she said this, her expression was very calm. No one knew what she was thinking. Family? The handsome man frowned. Of course he did not want to let Fei Yangxing go so easily. However, since Duanmuyu rarely spoke, especially in a public place like this, for the sake of the future, he had to give her face. He could only say, Fine, but you have to tell me how you got in here. As soon as this was said, Kappa, who was in the corner, was shocked. If Fei Yangxing told him the whole story, he would be dead. Fei Yangxing's mind was blank at this moment, but he was not completely stunned. He stammered, I was accidentally swallowed by a man-eating flower. I struggled with all my might. I don't know why. I woke up and ended up here. I arrived here without knowing anything? The handsome man smiled pleasantly, but his face immediately darkened. Nonsense. How could you break free from the entanglement of the Bingdi man-eating flower with your strength? Besides, even if you were lucky enough to escape, you should have landed in the 100-herb garden, not this inner garden. For the sake of your own life, I think it's better for you to tell me the truth. Fei Yangxing wanted to give up Lin Yi in a moment of desperation. Since he did not see Lin Yi here, he thought that Lin Yi was either dead or had escaped. No matter which one it was, it had nothing to do with him. However, at this moment he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. I really don't know what happened. I only know that when I was struggling in a daze, I seemed to have seen a big white insect. It had a pair of wings, it didn't seem to have wings. I really can't remember, maybe it was a dream. When I woke up, I was already here. I'm telling the truth, brain-eating bug? The handsome man did not care much at first, but when he heard those words, his expression suddenly became solemn. He could ignore everything else, but when it came to the temperamental brain-eater, he could not take it lightly. Upon hearing that, the other spirit beasts came to a sudden realization. No wonder this human could appear in this place without anyone noticing. Even so many patrol bees did not notice him. It turned out to be the brain-eating insect's doing, which made sense now. Aside from the brain-eating worms, no other existence could hide from their senses and transport a living person in. Because of this preconceived notion, even the handsome man subconsciously chose to believe it and could not help but mutter, throwing a living person in for no reason? What is this guy trying to do? Is he trying to show off to me? I vaguely remember that the insect said something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it said something like a greeting gift. Fei Yangxing added carefully. Greeting gift? Humph, what a greeting gift. The handsome man had no more doubts now. He did not care about Fei Yangxing's life or death at all, so he immediately ignored it and prepared to enter the bridal chamber. Kappa, who was in the corner, finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. This was a walk on the edge of life and death. However, what puzzled him was that he was the one who sneaked Fei Yangxing in, and it had nothing to do with the brain-eating bug. Moreover, he had never seen the brain-eating bug, so how did this guy inexplicably link it to the brain-eating bug? Little did he know that all of this came from Lin Yi's divine sense transmission. Fei Yangxing's words were just a repetition. If he did not bring out the brain-eating bug, it would not be so easy to get away with it today. The spirit beast surrounded the handsome man and Duanmuyu again as they walked toward the luxurious tent. Unexpectedly, Duanmuyu suddenly stopped and said, "Before we go to the bridal chamber, I still want to talk to my family for a while. I won't have this chance in the future. I hope you can fulfill my wish." Then, "Okay, but don't let me wait too long." The handsome man was unexpectedly easy to talk to. Although he showed his cruel and indifferent side just now, at least he was good to Duanmuyu, his new wife. After that, the handsome man immediately led the spirit beasts to continue drinking and reveling. Duanmuyu called Fei Yangxing, whose legs were weak, over and continued to walk toward the luxurious tent. "The four of you stay outside." Duanmuyu ordered the four maids who followed closely behind. "But..." The four maids looked at each other. "But what? From today onwards I am your mistress. Don't my words count?" Duanmuyu put on the airs of a mistress. "This servant doesn't dare." The four maids quickly nodded. They had all seen the handsome man's favor for Duanmuyu. If they really offended this new mistress, none of them would be able to live in the future. Duanmuyu immediately walked into the large tent with Fei Yangxing. The inside was luxuriously dressed, but Duanmuyu did not even look at it. She turned to look at Fei Yangxing and said, "Tell me what's the matter with you? Didn't I just say it?" Fei Yangxing grinned. "You don't want to say it? Forget it then. I was thinking of finding a chance for you to escape, but it seems that there's no need for that now." Duanmuyu said indifferently. No. Please don't." Fei Yangxing panicked and stammered, But what?" Duanmuyu looked at him. "But I don't dare to say it." Fei Yangxing said bitterly. "Don't dare to say it? Why don't you dare to say it?" Duanmuyu's interest was piqued. She only felt that Fei Yangxing was abnormal, so she asked on a whim. At this time Lin Yi's voice suddenly sounded in her mind, "Because I'm here, he doesn't dare to say it." "Lin Yi?" Duanmuyu was shocked. Although she did not have much contact with Lin Yi, she definitely had a deep impression of him. She recognized this voice as soon as she heard it. But the problem was, where was Lin Yi? At this moment, apart from her and Fei Yangxing, there was no one else in the luxurious tent. As the eldest senior sister of the Yiling sect, Duanmuyu's perception was outstanding among experts of the same level. If Lin Yi was really here, how could she not sense him at all? Chapter 52-52. Duanmuyu was shocked again, but she still could not find any trace of Lin Yi. She could not help but look like she had seen a ghost. She looked at Fei Yangxing and asked, "Where is he?" "I don't know," Fei Yangxing said with a bitter face. He had the same reaction when he heard Lin Yi's voice for the first time. However, he was almost scared stiff by the spirit beasts around him, so he did not show it on his face. Otherwise he would have given himself away. Then, this is... Duanmuyu did not know what to say for a while. Lin Yi's image in her mind was indeed unfathomable, but it should not be this unfathomable. She could only hear his voice but not see him. What the hell was this? "Senior sister Duanmu, do you think this is the manifestation of a ghost?" Fei Yangxing suddenly said mysteriously. "The manifestation of a ghost?" Duanmuyu was shocked when she heard this, but she immediately showed a disapproving expression. The theory of gods and ghosts was far more popular in the cultivation world than in the secular world. Although many people did not believe in it, there were many believers. Many things were half true and half false. Even the most powerful and authoritative big shots could not explain it, which further confirmed the possibility of the theory of gods and ghosts. Of course, Duanmuyu did not believe in this. Not only did she not believe it, but most of the elite cultivators also disdained it. For cultivators, ghosts were the spirit. "It's true." Fei Yangxing believed it without a doubt. He said seriously, "I didn't believe it at first, but I had to believe it. Otherwise, there would be no way to explain what happened today. Senior sister Duanmu, do you know how I came in?" "How did you come in? Isn't it because of the brain-eating bug?" Duanmuyu asked curiously. "Of course not, I don't even know what a brain-eating bug is. What I just said was taught to me by Senior Lin Yi, one sentence at a time." Fei Yangxing smiled bitterly and shook his head. Seeing that Duanmuyu was getting more and more confused, he said, "I just said that I was swallowed by the twin piranha flower, But the one who saved me was not a brain-eating worm, but Senior Lin Yi. After he saved me, we fell into a paradise filled with rare elixirs, but I was careless and fell into the hands of a river monster. When I woke up, I inexplicably appeared here. What does this have to do with ghosts? Duanmu did not understand. Senior Sister Duanmu, think about it carefully. Since that terrifying river monster attacked me, it definitely won't let Senior Lin Yi off. Even if Senior Lin Yi is very strong, he's not invincible, right? Moreover, if Senior Lin Yi didn't become a ghost, how could we only hear his voice and not see him? Fei Yangxing deduced with a serious face. Duanmu was speechless after listening to his theory. This was a common problem for many people. Once they encountered some problems that they could not understand, they would naturally think about the mysterious side, and the more they thought about it, the more they could not extricate themselves. I have to say, Senior Lin Yi is really kind. He didn't forget to save me even though he has become a ghost. After I escape this disaster, I must burn more paper money for him. Humans and ghosts are different. This is the only thing I can do for him, Fei Yangxing said with a sigh. Humans and ghosts are different. Duanmu almost burst out laughing when she heard this. She thought about it and said, I think you're thinking too much. It's really strange to only hear his voice but not see him, but it's not completely inexplicable. I suspect that Lin Yi's spirit is here. Don't forget he is said to have a spirit body. A spirit body? Fei Yangxing was stunned for a moment before he reacted, oh right, no one has mentioned it for so long, I almost forgot about it. I really can't hide it from Miss Duanmu. Lin Yi finally showed his spirit body in front of the two. Senior Lin. Fei Yangxing immediately showed a surprised and happy expression, but only he knew how much of it was real and how much was fake. A hint of joy flashed across Duanmu's face, but she quickly calmed down and said with a sigh, I really didn't expect you to have such amazing skills. It seems that you are indeed from a different world from us. Although you are not a ghost, to a certain extent you are not much different from a ghost. Miss Duanmu's words hit the nail on the head. I admire you. Lin Yi did not deny it. As a woman, he had to admit that Duanmu was indeed a very discerning and insightful person, which was far above most men. Her words had clearly revealed Lin Yi's origin and essence. Brother Lin, you flatter me. Duanmu shook her head with a wry smile. Anyone with a little discerning eye could see that Lin Yi was not ordinary. In contrast, she should be considered a hindsight. Lin Yi smiled and looked up and down at Duanmu. He suddenly asked, Miss Duanmu, what do you think? This question was a little abrupt. If it was someone else, they might not be able to react for a while, but Duanmu was very clear about Lin Yi's question. She smiled bitterly and said, I have no choice, that's all. I guess so. Lin Yi nodded. With Duanmu's temperament and style, it was impossible for her to marry a spirit beast willingly. The only explanation was that she had no choice but to compromise. After a moment of silence, Duanmu forced a smile and said, Forget it, it is a rare surprise for me to be able to meet Brother Lin in this damn place. I'm satisfied. Oh yes, Brother Lin, if it is difficult for you to go out like this, you might as well try to hide here for a while. I will think of a way to send you out of here safely. It can be considered as a repayment for your previous kindness. If it were any other woman in Duanmu's situation, they wouldn't be this calm even if they didn't cry to the heavens. However, Lin Yi could clearly feel that Duanmu hadn't given up just like that. It was just that he didn't know what she was thinking. Are you ready to accept your fate? Lin Yi probed. Accept my fate? Duanmu sighed and looked at Lin Yi with a complicated expression. Maybe. I will think of a way to struggle, but the possibility of success is not high. If it doesn't work when the time comes, I can only accept my fate. She wasn't that close with Lin Yi, and Fei Yangxing was there as well. She was already being very honest with Lin Yi, not to mention that Fei Yangxing was there. She wouldn't go any further than that, and there was no need for her to say it out loud. Lin Yi thought for a while and suddenly suggested, why don't we join forces? Chapter 52-53. Duanmu still shook her head and refused. No, I appreciate Brother Lin's kindness. I just said that I will find a way to send you out safely first. You really don't have to do this for me. Frankly, even if we join forces, we have no chance of winning in front of him. It's meaningless. Senior Lin, since Senior Sister Duanmu has said so, I think we should forget it. Maybe without our help, she will be more like a fish in water? Fei Yangxing couldn't help but interrupt. Lin Yi's suggestion had given him quite a fright. As far as he was concerned, it was suicide. He'd be the first one to die since he was the weakest of them all. However, Lin Yi ignored him and said directly to Duanmu, To be honest, I want to join forces with you not just for you but for myself. If there is a chance to get rid of the Protector, I must try it anyway. What? You want to get rid of him? This time, not only Fei Yangxing but even Duan Muyu was stunned. She was thinking about how to escape at most. She did not expect Lin Yi to want to get rid of the Protector directly. Isn't this a bit too crazy? Do you know what his strength is? Duan Muyu quickly wanted to popularize the general knowledge to Lin Yi. She had been in contact with the Protector for so many days. Although she had not seen the other party fight seriously, the tip of the iceberg she knew was enough to dispel this unrealistic and stupid idea. This kind of monster was not an existence that cultivators at their level could deal with at all. The difference in strength between them was too great. I don't know, but I probably have some idea because I have fought with the brain-eating bug. Lin Yi said. Since the Protector and the brain-eating bug were at the same level, their strength was naturally not much different. At most, there was a difference in the ability they were good at. You have fought with the brain-eating bug? You can escape unscathed? Duan Muyu was stunned again. Although she had been staying in the big tent, she was clear about what had happened since the commotion outside was so loud. She suddenly came to a realization and said, no wonder it specifically wanted to track you. No wonder you would have such a dangerous idea. If I'm not wrong, you're mainly doing this for Cold and the others, right? Yes. Lin Yi nodded. With his endless variety of abilities, even if the brain-eating bug and the Protector joined hands to hunt him down, he wouldn't need to worry too much. But Cold and the others couldn't handle this level of danger, so he had to make the first move. You're a good person, better than most of the people I've met. Duan Muyu looked at Lin Yi deeply. Ugh. Lin Yi couldn't help but sweat. What the hell was going on here? He hadn't even confessed yet, why was he being called a good guy already? But even so, I still think it is unreliable and the chance is slim. Duan Muyu suddenly changed the topic. Even if Lin Yi could escape unscathed from the brain-eating bug, it did not mean that he had the confidence to face the Protector, let alone kill him. Duan Muyu suddenly changed the topic. Even if Lin Yi could escape unscathed from the brain-eating bug, it did not mean that he had the confidence to face the Protector, let alone kill the Protector. Lin Yi didn't give up. If it's just me, I might only have a 1% chance. But with your help, my chances will increase by 10 times to 1 in 10. 1/10. Duan Muyu frowned. The success rate is not high, but I think it is worth a try. Of course, if you think the success rate of your plan is higher than if we join forces, then follow your plan. You don't have to force it. Lin Yi said sincerely. Duan Muyu was not impulsive. She really thought about it carefully and finally came to a conclusion. The success rate of my plan is not as high as yours, but there is an advantage. The risk of failure is far less than if we join forces. If I behave sensibly, I will at most be imprisoned. At least it will not be a problem to linger on. If I join forces with you, I will definitely die if I fail. That is true. If you join forces with me, you will either succeed or die trying. There is no third possibility. Lin Yi nodded. If a woman was simply running away from a marriage, her husband wouldn't go so far as to kill her. But if this woman was plotting to murder her husband, then she would definitely die. With the Protector's strength, if he really failed, Lin Yi could still escape, but Duan Muyu would definitely die. Duan Muyu was still weighing the two options while Fei Yangxing looked at her eagerly. He silently prayed that Duan Muyu would not agree. Otherwise it would not only be Duan Muyu but also him. Fortunately, the inclination of Duan Muyu's words was very obvious. As the saying goes, where there is life there is hope. It was better to keep a useful body than to lose one's life on impulse. Since Duan Muyu analyzed it so clearly, she must be a rational person. After a while, Duan Muyu finally made up her mind. Okay, I will join forces with you. Fei Yangxing almost knelt down when he heard this. Although Duan Muyu was a rational person, he was wrong about one thing. This woman was not rational at all. Have you thought it through? Lin Yi asked. Although he was the one who made this proposal, to be honest, he did not expect Duan Muyu to agree. After all, this was an extremely dangerous decision for Duan Muyu. Don't worry, I've thought it through very clearly. Although I can still keep my life if I follow my own method, I don't want to live as someone else's dual cultivation forbidden land. I might as well die, Duan Muyu said straightforwardly. Okay. Lin Yi nodded. Since Duan Muyu had this awareness, it could not be better for him. If Duan Muyu really did not agree, he would have a headache. Then what plan do you have? Let's quickly come up with it. Duan Muyu immediately got to the point. However, before Lin Yi had time to answer, he suddenly disappeared into thin air and turned into his primordial spirit state to hide in an inconspicuous corner. Before Duan Muyu and Fei Yangxing could react, The handsome man's voice came from outside the tent. "Madam, are you done talking to your family?" Following the voice, the handsome man walked in. This was his territory, and it was already a rare favor for him to allow Duan Muyu to speak to Fei Yangxing alone. No matter when he wanted to enter, even Duan Muyu couldn't be the slightest bit careless. Chapter 52-54. Send him out? Frankly speaking, with his level of strength, even if he were to be sent out, he would become a tribute sooner or later. However, since Madam has spoken, let's do it this way. I'll get the patrol bee to bring him out. The handsome man agreed. Thank you, my king. Thank you, my king. Fei Yangxing was instantly overjoyed. He had thought that he was dead meat. He never thought that there would be such a thoughtful arrangement. Duan Muyu was such a good person. Fei Yangxing was quickly brought out by the patrol bee. Soon after, the other spirit beasts squeezed in impatiently. They were still excitedly waiting to make a scene in the bridal chamber. However, with a casual order from the handsome man, the spirit beasts who could not transform into human form retreated. The only ones who could enter the tent were spirit beasts who had transformed into human form. In the face of such a situation, no matter how carefree Duan Muyu appeared on the surface, she still felt very uncomfortable. Making a scene in the bridal chamber would definitely require some intimate actions with the other party. She felt disgusted as she had never been intimate with any man before. However, in this situation she had no choice but to bite the bullet and cooperate. She could not possibly fall out with them on the spot. Even if she wanted to court death, this was not the way to do it. As expected, the spirit beasts started to clamor for the bride and groom to kiss each other in public. After all, they were not humans. In this aspect they were very open-minded. Duan Muyu could not avoid this no matter how hard she tried. As she watched the spirit beasts getting closer and closer, Duan Muyu closed her eyes and steeled her heart. Just as she was about to throw caution to the wind, a loud explosion suddenly rang out from the crowd. A few spirit beasts who had transformed into human forms were blasted away on the spot. The entire luxurious tent was instantly thrown into chaos. What's going on? The human-shaped spirit beasts who had been sent sprawling on the ground were extremely flustered. Some of them were so frightened that they immediately reverted to their original forms. The scene was extremely chaotic. No one could have imagined that such an accident would happen on such an occasion. Who would be so daring as to cause trouble in the Lord Protector's bridal chamber? The spirit beasts were at a loss of what to do. However, as the master, the handsome man was not the least bit flustered. He had already locked onto the source of the loud explosion. His expression was extremely ugly as he said, "Explosive flame fruit." That's right, the source of the explosion just now was the specialty of the 100 Herb Garden, the exploding flame fruit that could explode if one was not careful. All the spirit beasts were speechless. Before today's banquet, the Lord Protector had shown them a special favor by allowing them to go to the 100 Herb Garden to collect some rare spirit herbs as a return gift. This was a very rare opportunity, so they naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony. It wasn't strange for some of the spirit beasts to collect the exploding flame fruits, but no one expected such a situation to occur at this time. The explosive blaze fruit was extremely unstable and would explode at the slightest pressure. It was obvious that everyone had accidentally squeezed it when they were making a ruckus, resulting in this awkward and chaotic accident. Explosive flame fruits would obviously be. The handsome man's face darkened completely. If the previous incident had not happened, he would not have minded getting the other spiritual beasts to cheer him up. After all, this was a common human custom. However, he was no longer in the mood at this moment. An explosive flame fruit had ruined his rare good mood to the extreme in an instant. The explosive flame fruit had helped her out of her predicament. After all, this was a human custom. However, he was no longer in the mood. An explosive flame fruit had ruined his rare good mood to the extreme. Duan Muyu breathed a sigh of relief as she watched the noisy scene unfold. The explosive flame fruit had really helped her out of her predicament, and she couldn't help but thank Lin Yi in her heart. Of course she had to thank Lin Yi. After all, those spirit beasts weren't stupid, and none of them would dare to bring something as dangerous as the explosive flame fruit into the bridal chamber. The culprit behind the explosive flame fruit was Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi had been very careful. He had been hiding in a corner while maintaining his primordial spirit form. He had only stealthily slid the explosive flame fruit under their feet. Otherwise, with the handsome man's senses, he would have been exposed if he had appeared in his primordial spirit form. The spirit beasts were very sensible. Once they saw that the protector was in a bad mood, not only did they quickly escape from the luxurious tent, They did not even dare to stay outside for fear that they would accidentally become scapegoats. One by one, they hurriedly squeezed their way up the stairs and left this troublesome place. Unbeknownst to them, the handsome man's mood was not as bad as they had imagined. Once he and Duan Muyu were the only ones left in the tent, his expression quickly eased and he said gently, "The hindrances have all left. Madam, let's begin our dual cultivation." Dual cultivation was the main reason why he had made up his mind to marry Duan Muyu. Now that they had skipped the bridal chamber and were about to enter the bridal chamber, he could not wait any longer. Duan Muyu was startled when she heard this. She was just rejoicing that she had escaped from the nuptial chamber. She didn't expect that this guy was going to go further in the nuptial chamber. He was serious. What's wrong? The handsome man looked at her in surprise. This. Isn't it too fast? Duan Muyu racked her brains to delay it. She had not discussed the specific plan with Lin Yi until now. What should she do if she was forced to enter the bridal chamber as soon as she arrived? Too fast? How can that be? We've held a proper wedding banquet. According to tradition, it's time to go through the formalities. Isn't this a very normal thing? How can it be too fast? The handsome man tried to dissuade them. But, Duan Muyu was so anxious that she did not know what to say. In the end, she finally had a flash of inspiration and said, "I still don't know how to dual cultivate." "Oh, that's easy. Later you just need to adjust the vital energy in your body. You don't have to worry about anything else. I'll take charge of everything." The handsome man smiled. But Duan Muyu still wanted to delay it a little more. No matter what, she had to at least think of a way to discuss it with Lin Yi. "No buts. Come with me." The handsome man's face darkened. Although his tolerance for Duan Muyu was much higher than that of those spirit beasts, it was still very limited. No one could change what he had decided on, and it was the same for Duan Muyu as his new wife. Duan Muyu did not dare to be long-winded anymore. If she said no at this time, the other party might fall out with her on the spot. There would be no room for negotiation. The handsome man walked towards the back of the tent with his hands behind his back. Duan Muyu was at a loss for a moment. At this moment, Lin Yi's voice suddenly sounded in her mind, "Follow him and act according to the situation." Chapter 52-55. What's wrong? Aren't we leaving? Duan Muyu hurriedly said to divert his attention. "It's nothing. Let's go." The handsome man glanced at her and felt that he might have been overthinking. This was his base camp. Who would be so bold as to stay here and play tricks? Lin Yi secretly felt a lingering fear when he saw this scene. This fellow was indeed not easy to fool. He had tried his best to send a voice transmission with his divine sense, but he did not expect to be discovered. Fortunately, Duan Muyu's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise he might really have been caught. After all, this tent was not big. Even if Lin Yi transformed into his essence soul form, and even if his essence soul level was far above the other party's due to his main body strength, it was unlikely that he could completely hide from the other party's perception if the other party really searched carefully. The handsome man led the way through the hall and walked directly to the back of the tent. Duan Muyu was immediately stunned. There was no way out in front of him. It was directly blocked by the tent. What was he doing? Unexpectedly, when he walked all the way to the tent, the handsome man did not stop at all. He did not lift the tent at all and just passed through it as if he had disappeared into thin air. "Come in." The handsome man's voice sounded out of thin air. Duan Muyu frowned slightly, but she still walked in the same way as the other party. Indeed, she did not encounter any obstruction and directly passed through the tent. This is... Duan Muyu was stunned. The scene in front of her was exactly the same as before. Other than the direction being reversed, be it the spatial layout or the scenery, everything was exactly the same as before. There was almost no difference at all. "Welcome to another world," the handsome man said with a smile. "Another world? What do you mean?" Duan Muyu was puzzled. You will understand when you go out and take a look." The handsome man smiled and personally led Duan Muyu forward. When they walked out of the tent, Duan Muyu was completely shocked when she saw the scene in front of her. She was very sure that she did not go back, but she saw the exact same scene as before. It was just like the tent. There was no difference at all. It was just that the direction had been reversed. Apart from that, if there was anything else different, it would be that this place was completely empty, and there were no signs of spirit beasts. "I don't understand." Duan Muyu shook her head. If it was anyone else in her position, they would not be able to understand it immediately. She was very sure that all of this was not an illusion, nor was it a carefully crafted scene. Perhaps, as the handsome man had said, this was another world, another twin world. It's okay. You'll understand slowly. The handsome man did not intend to continue explaining. Instead, he said impatiently, there's only the two of us here. No one will disturb us. Let's begin our dual cultivation. Duan Muyu was a little hesitant, but when he recalled Lin Yi's words just now, he secretly gritted his teeth and braced himself to feign civility. At the same time, Lin Yi, who was hiding in the dark, more or less figured out something. This space gave people a very mysterious feeling. Every layout was exactly the same as the outside world. The only difference was that the direction had been reversed. In his knowledge, there was only one possibility that could explain this situation in front of him. A mirror. If he guessed correctly, this was a world that existed in a mirror. This was the only reasonable inference, but it still shocked Lin Yi because he had not found a mirror at all since he came in. He did not find anything similar to a mirror. If he used common sense to deduce, the place where the mirror world was connected to the real world was where the mirror was. In that case, the mirror could only be that seemingly ordinary tent. Could it be that the root of all this was that tent? Could it be that the tent was a spatial artifact similar to the jade pendant? If he did not figure out this matter, it would inevitably have a huge impact on the next action. It might even directly lead to failure. In any case, he could not ignore it. When Lin Yi thought of this, he quickly went back to verify it. It turned out that there was no problem with the tent itself. It was really just an ordinary tent. Since it was not the effect of the tent, there were only two possible explanations. Either the artifact that could create the mirror world was on the handsome man, or it was simply the handsome man's own ability. If it was only the former, it would be fine. If it was the latter, this guy's strength was really a bit too strong. For a moment, Lin Yi could not help but feel a trace of regret. The degree of difficulty of this guardian might be far above the brain-eating worm. It was easier said than done to kill such a guy on the spur of the moment. When he told Duan Muyu before, he said that as long as Duan Muyu cooperated, there would be a 1 in 10 chance of success. Now it seemed that he was a little too optimistic. Fortunately, this mirror world was highly consistent with the outside world. Lin Yi did not find anything wrong. He did not feel any discomfort, and there were no signs of his strength being limited. Most importantly, he could still freely enter and exit the tent on both sides, which meant that this mirror world had not shown any harm so far. This was very important as it was directly related to the life and death of himself and Duan Muyu. Lin Yi did not dare to be careless. After testing several times in a row, he finally felt relieved. No matter what, he must not lose the only exit to return to the real world. However, while Lin Yi was repeatedly testing, the handsome man, who had already walked out of the tent with Duan Muyu, suddenly turned back. At the same time, there was a smug sneer on his face. Come out. Since you have entered my moon's mirror, don't think of escaping my perception. Don't struggle in vain. No matter how much you struggle, it's just a waste of energy. Duan Muyu, who was behind him, was shocked when she heard this. Although she did not know where Lin Yi was hiding, there was no doubt that this guy had clearly found Lin Yi's traces. Once discovered, Lin Yi would definitely die. No matter how high Duan Muyu's evaluation of Lin Yi was, she believed it without a doubt. After all, the difference in strength between them was too great. They were not on the same level at all. Unfortunately, Lin Yi did not show up obediently. There was no movement around him at all. Chapter 52-56. What he said was not wrong at all. Although he did not catch the thief on the spot, he basically caught the thief and the goods together. Under normal circumstances, if it was anyone else, they would have taken the initiative to show themselves. Then whether to escape or fight would be another matter. However, if he still had to hide his identity, then it would be a little embarrassing. Duan Muyu's heart turned cold. She was thinking the same thing. Next, Lin Yi would definitely appear, and the two of them would work together to fight with their lives on the line. As for whether or not they would be able to fight with their lives on the line, it would be up to fate. In the end, the surroundings were still dead silent, and Lin Yi still did not show up. To be able to sneak into my tent in front of so many spirit beasts without anyone noticing and hide right under everyone's eyes, this is not simple. I thought that someone who could do this was at least a great figure. I didn't expect you to be so tasteless. It seems that I really overestimated you. The handsome man was still sneering, but he did not show any signs of being anxious at all. Instead, he was calm and confident, giving people the feeling that everything was under his control. However, no matter how he provoked Lin Yi, he would not show up no matter what. Once he showed up, he would either die or be seriously injured. Lin Yi knew this very well. If he maintained the state of his primordial spirit and did not move, the other party would not be able to find out his details for a while. Instead, it would be safer. Of course, the safest way was to find a way to escape from this mirror world. As long as he could escape, he would be like a fish in the sea and a bird in the sky. No matter how strong the handsome man was, he would not be able to catch up with him. However, in that case Duanmuyu would really be helpless. Lin Yi could not do such a shameless act of betraying his teammate. Therefore Lin Yi decided to bide his time and deal with all changes by remaining unchanged. Idiot. The corners of the handsome man's mouth curled into a sarcastic smile. The entire mirror world suddenly turned upside down without warning, and then returned to its original state in an instant. Even Duanmuyu, who had a calm mind, was shocked by such a drastic change. Although from her point of view she only felt a slight shake and did not suffer any substantial damage, the shift of her center of gravity just now was real. No matter how fast her reaction was, she could not adjust it. As long as she was in this mirror world, she would inevitably reveal her flaws. The handsome man wanted to rely on this move to force Lin Yi out. Unfortunately, the result was very disappointing. Faced with such a sudden change, Lin Yi actually didn't have the slightest opening. It was simply strange. Unbeknownst to him, Lin Yi was merely a wisp of his soul core that was floating in the air, and he didn't have the ability to shift his center of gravity at all. No matter how this method of his was able to catch Lin Yi off guard, Lin Yi was innately immune to it, so what could he do? No? Did he escape? The handsome man himself was taken aback. He didn't really lock the position of Lin Yi. He just perceived that there was such an intruder through some clues, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to escape so fast. However, he didn't give up. He immediately used his divine awareness to perceive everything around him carefully. This was the mirror world that he had created by himself. Every inch of soil, every grass and every tree was under his control. In the past he didn't need to use his divine awareness at all, but this time he didn't believe it. He didn't believe that anyone could escape from the mirror world in front of him. Lin Yi immediately felt an extremely subtle fluctuation of divine awareness. He was hiding in the corner of the big tent at the moment, not too far away from the other party. If he was not careful, he would expose his flaws. If it was an ordinary gold core stage spirit beast, Lin Yi didn't have to worry about it. He didn't have any gains in other aspects this year, but in terms of soul core he was absolutely reborn. Especially after the strength of soul core stagnated, he put more energy into studying divine awareness skills. In this aspect, his ability could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. Not only was he able to freely switch between the state of soul core, half soul, and soul core, but he also had a lot of experience in other small skills. These small skills seemed to be simple and basic, but in fact they were very useful, such as soul concealment. The so-called soul concealment was not really to make the soul disappear and invisible, but to reduce the existence of the soul core as much as possible. The state of the soul core was difficult for most people to detect. When the existence of the soul core was reduced to the extreme, it could achieve a concealment effect that was almost invisible. In particular, the quality of Lin Yi's divine awareness was far above that of the other party. Even if the other party's divine awareness was detected, he could also deceive it, and the concealment was even more seamless. If not, he would have been discovered by so many spirit beasts before. However, now that he was facing a handsome man, far from those spirit beasts, Lin Yi didn't dare to take it lightly. He tried as much as possible to reduce the existence of his soul core to the extreme, trying to find a way to integrate with the surrounding environment. Sure enough, when the handsome man's divine awareness swept over him for the first time, he couldn't find Lin Yi on the spot. After carefully scanning the surroundings, he still found nothing. However, before Lin Yi could breathe a sigh of relief, the handsome man seemed to suddenly notice something. His divine awareness once again covered the area, and the focus was on the area where Lin Yi was. Oh no! Sensing the fluctuation of the other party's divine awareness, Lin Yi suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He knew that the other party had already discovered that something was wrong. At this rate he would be discovered sooner or later. In fact, the flaw was not on Lin Yi. His soul core concealment was now quite good, and even the handsome man wouldn't be able to easily detect it. The real flaw was in this mirror world. The key to concealment of the soul core was to integrate with the surrounding environment, and everything here was the work of the handsome man. How could it be easy to integrate with the environment and deceive the other party? Found you. The handsome man suddenly snorted coldly and struck out a palm in the direction of Lin Yi's soul core. At first glance, it didn't seem to have any shocking power, but the space that was locked on by it shattered with a bang. No matter how strong an existence was, once they were affected they would die without a doubt. This scene made Duanmuyu's heart jump, and his heart sank even more. The handsome man was the creator of this mirror world, and he was the master here. How could he fight him? Lin Yi can't be dead, right? Duan Muyu's heart was filled with panic. With her ability, she couldn't detect Lin Yi. At first, she also thought that Lin Yi must have seen that the situation was not good and escaped. However, the handsome man would not attack for no reason, so Lin Yi must have been discovered. Unexpectedly at this moment, Lin Yi's voice suddenly sounded in her mind, "Don't worry, I'm very lucky, I won't die so easily." Chapter 52-57. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi seemed to know what she was thinking, and the voice in her mind sounded again, "Don't be afraid, he can't catch me because I'm not using divine sense at all." Not using divine sense? Although Duan Muyu did not speak, her thoughts were already stammering, and she could not figure out the specific situation for a while. "Because I'm on you. I have no choice, please forgive me." Lin Yi apologized with a bitter smile. This was the only way he could escape the other party's detection. Up until now, the other party probably didn't know that he was a Yuan Shen, so she wouldn't think that he could attach himself to Duan Muyu's body. In other words, Duan Muyu's body was the best hiding place. "You're on me?" Duan Muyu was even more shocked. Fortunately, the handsome man's attention was searching for Lin Yi at this time, or he would definitely notice her abnormality. "Yes, I'm squatting next to your spirit, but don't worry, it won't cause any bad effects to you," Lin Yi hurriedly assured. It was a very fatal thing to be possessed by someone's spirit. If he was not careful, it would evolve into a fierce battle between the spirits or even a possession. He was not too familiar with Duan Muyu, and the degree of trust between them was far from enough. If he took possession of Duan Muyu without saying a word, no matter how Duan Muyu would react, it would be human nature. Unexpectedly, Duan Muyu's reaction was far calmer than Lin Yi imagined, but the question was a little strange. "You can directly know what I'm thinking just like this?" "I can roughly know a little." Lin Yi could not help but be a little surprised. Was Duan Muyu not worried at all that he would be possessed? There should be a lot of rumors about spirit possession in the cultivation world, right? "Then won't I have no secrets in front of you?" Duan Muyu suddenly became a little anxious. Lin Yi was speechless for a while. Women were indeed women, and their thoughts were always unpredictable. Even a man like Duan Muyu was no exception. At this time, what she was most worried about was privacy issues. After being stunned for a moment, Lin Yi could only explain with a bitter smile, "Don't worry, I can't peek into your heart. At most, I can only read your subconscious soul fluctuations. There is no need to worry about privacy issues." "That's good." Duan Muyu heaved a sigh of relief. While Lin Yi was comforting Duan Muyu, the handsome man on the other side was stunned. He used his divine sense to scan the surroundings again and again, but he did not find any suspicious signs. Even the strange feeling that suddenly appeared just now had disappeared without a trace. "Am I really thinking too much?" the handsome man muttered, then his gaze returned to Duan Muyu. He smiled and said, "Don't let a coward spoil your mood. Come, let's begin." "Okay." Duan Muyu responded. This time, because Lin Yi was hiding in her body, she was much more confident than before. Unfortunately, the other party's next words scared her. "Take off your clothes." "Take off my clothes?" Duan Muyu immediately froze. It was true that she had the temperament of a man. Even if she was in the middle of a group of men, she would not flinch or feel uncomfortable at all. However, she was still a woman after all. She had to make up her mind when it came to taking off her clothes. How can we dual cultivate if we don't take off our clothes? Besides, we are husband and wife who have formally bowed to heaven and earth. Now is the time to consummate our marriage. The handsome man looked at her with interest. Duan Muyu did not know how to refute. Seeing that the other party was staring at her with a hint of coldness in his eyes, she immediately understood that after the two disturbances just now, the other party's patience was almost at its limit. After all, Duan Muyu was much more forthright than the average woman. She gritted her teeth and immediately took off her bright red coat, revealing a plain white undergarment. "Take it off again," the handsome man urged expressionlessly. Duan Muyu frowned. She could barely see people with her undergarment on, but once it was taken off, she would only be left with her undergarments. This was equivalent to a woman's chastity. Other than the man she had entrusted her life to, no one else could see it. However, there was a spiritual beast in human form in front of her, and Lin Yi's primordial spirit was hidden in its body. If she took it off, how could she face others? "I won't repeat myself," the handsome man said lightly. Duan Muyu did not hesitate for too long. She quickly took off her undergarment. This time, only her undergarments were left to cover her embarrassing parts. However, she did not show any shyness on her face. Instead, she appeared very calm, as if she had thought it through in such a short period of time. Not bad. The handsome man looked up and down Duan Muyu's body with an appreciative gaze. It was not only him. In fact, even Lin Yi did not miss this scene. He could not help but be secretly speechless. From a purely female point of view, Duan Muyu's figure was actually not perfect. Her bronze-colored skin didn't seem fair enough, and she lacked the gentleness and gracefulness of a woman. However, she had a heroic spirit and tightness that was rare for a woman, which gave her a different kind of charm. Do not look at indecent things. Lin Yi felt that he was suspected of peeping, but he immediately found an excuse for himself. Right now he needed to pay attention to her every move. Admiring Duan Muyu's body was just a side effect. He had no other choice. Do I look good? Duan Muyu suddenly asked in his mind. Yes. Lin Yi replied subconsciously. Then he immediately regretted it. Being peeped by a man like him, no matter how carefree Duan Muyu was, she would definitely fall out with him. This was related to a woman's chastity. If you are not a primordial spirit, I will dig out your eyes right now. Although her words were fierce, Duan Muyu's tone was not that agitated. I didn't do it on purpose. Lin Yi was very embarrassed. He had no choice but to change the topic. Business is more important. Business is more important. With Duan Muyu's escape, the atmosphere unconsciously began to become a little charming. The handsome man reached out to touch Duan Muyu's body. Duan Muyu hurriedly took a step back. Don't be afraid. We are husband and wife. We will take this step sooner or later. The handsome man advised with a gentle expression. But I still don't know what you are. Duan Muyu suddenly said. You want to know my true form? The handsome man looked at her meaningfully. Yes. Duan Muyu nodded. In fact, the person who really wanted to ask this question was Lin Yi. She was just a mouthpiece. If she wanted to deal with the handsome man, at the very least, she had to know what the other party's true form was. Chapter 52-58. Ah. Duan Muyu looked at him carefully. There was no change at all compared to before. He could not help but be surprised. Are you also a human? Whether I am a human or not, you can feel it yourself. The handsome man smiled non-committally, walked a step in front of Duan Muyu, stood still and stretched out his hand. Duan Muyu looked at him suspiciously, and under Lin Yi's instigation, he pinched his arm. Suddenly the look in his eyes changed. This texture was definitely not human flesh and blood, it felt more like some kind of plant, but he could not think of what it was at the moment. Can't guess? The handsome man's mouth curled up with interest, and his right hand slowly moved to his left forearm. He gently bent it and then there was a crisp crack. Duan Muyu's eyelids suddenly twitched, and when he saw that the other party had forcibly broken off his entire left forearm, he was even more shocked. What was going on? Duan Muyu wasn't the only one. Even Lin Yi was stunned. He'd seen ruthless people before, but he'd never seen someone this ruthless. It was the first time he'd seen someone so ruthless that he could break his own arm so easily. However, the strange thing was that even though his entire forearm had been torn off, the handsome man did not bleed at all. Upon closer inspection, the forearm was not made of flesh and blood at all. Other than a few holes on the severed part, the rest of the body was completely solid. The most shocking thing was that the broken forearm was still connected to the wound on his body by several thin threads, as if a lotus root was broken and silk was still connected to the wound on his body. Lotus root? Only then did Duan Muyu react. He widened his eyes and looked at the handsome man again. You are a lotus root person? Sort of. To be exact, my original body is a water lily. As for my identity, you also know that I am the guardian of that lord, which is also what they call the water lily guardian. The handsome man said lightly. Water lily guardian. This answer surprised Duan Muyu a little. Water lilies were an extremely quiet and beautiful plant, and could even be called holy. Although this guy in front of him looked gentle and refined most of the time, the violence that would jump out from time to time was deeply rooted in his bones. No matter how he thought about it, it had nothing to do with water lilies. However, Lin Yi came to a sudden realization. Spirit beasts were different from human cultivators. Unless they were gifted, they could only cultivate their clan's innate abilities. Moreover, every innate ability was closely related to their original form. This fellow's original form was actually a water lily. No wonder he could use such a miraculous ability like Moon's reflection. Alright, I've asked all I need to ask. Take off your clothes. Dual cultivation needs to be clean and spotless. Let me help you wash your body. After saying that, the handsome man reattached his arm and reached out to grab the last piece of Duan Muyu's underwear. Duan Muyu wasn't so carefree this time. If even her last piece of clothing was torn off, then she would be completely ashamed to see anyone. To be honest, Duan Muyu's strength could not be considered weak, but that depended on who he was compared to. In front of an existence like the Water Lotus Protector, he was not even worth mentioning. His body had just leaned back a little when his hands were already grabbed by the other party. There's no need to hide. I know you're shy, so I'll help you take it off myself this time. The handsome man smiled slightly. His patience had almost worn out, and he didn't want to dawdle with Duan Muyu anymore. He wanted to get straight to the point and directly try dual cultivation. Duan Muyu was shocked, but at this time she couldn't struggle at all. She could only watch as the other party slowly pulled off her underwear. At this time she had no other choice but to accept her fate. However, just when Duan Muyu was about to despair between her and the handsome man, Lin Yi suddenly appeared, and before the other party could react, he directly stuffed his hand into the other party's mouth. This scene happened so suddenly that not only did the handsome man not expect it, but even Duan Muyu, who was mentally prepared, could not react in time. It would have been fine if it was just sudden, but the key was that Lin Yi's speed was too fast. Whether it was escape or surprise attack, he had the absolute initiative. Previously, the brain-eating worm could not do anything to him, and this time, it was the Water Lotus Protector who could not do anything to him. As a dignified protector, the handsome man had never suffered such a great humiliation. Not only was someone sneaking into his mirror world, but now he had a hand stuffed into his mouth. This time he was so angry that he almost lost his mind. Unfortunately, before he could do anything to fight back, Lin Yi had already taken his hand back. His whole body, along with Duan Muyu behind him, got up and retreated quickly. The handsome man was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that there seemed to be something in his mouth. Unfortunately, before he could reach out to take it, the thing had already exploded, and his whole head was blown up on the spot. He is dead. Duan Muyu looked at the mutilated corpse in front of her, dumbfounded. She thought that today was a narrow escape and there would be a bloody and bitter battle. She did not expect that Lin Yi would suddenly make a move and directly end the battle. I hope so. Lin Yi looked at the corpse and frowned slightly. Although the sneak attack just now was a plan that he had long thought about, it was actually just a backup option because the best time to attack was only after this guy really began the dual cultivation. However, in that case, Duan Muyu's innocence would be lost. After weighing the pros and cons, Lin Yi finally chose to make a move in advance. Fortunately, this was not a bad opportunity. Coupled with Lin Yi's almost unfathomable speed, he finally succeeded in the sneak attack and gave the Water Lotus Protector a big gift with a real chi pill firebomb. Logically, the other party being blown up like this should be considered a success, but for some reason, perhaps because it was too smooth, Lin Yi always felt a little uneasy in his heart. This was an existence at the same level as the brain-eating worm, and a real chi pill firebomb easily solved it? What's wrong? Duan Muyu looked at him and said, Oh, it's nothing. Lin Yi shook his head vigorously. This matter might really be him thinking too much. Although this Water Lotus Protector was strong, it was obviously not the same kind of spirit beast as the brain-eating worm, and its defensive ability was far less powerful than the brain-eating worm. It was normal for it to be killed by a real chi pill firebomb due to carelessness. Since it's nothing, why don't you put me down? Duan Muyu's expression was cold. Sorry. Lin Yi suddenly came back to his senses. Just now, in order to prevent Duan Muyu from being accidentally injured by the real chi pill firebomb, he directly hugged Duan Muyu when he retreated. In a moment of daze, he actually forgot about this, making it seem like he was deliberately taking advantage of the other party. Chapter 52-59. Especially at this moment, Duan Muyu was wearing underwear, and his hand was completely in contact with her skin. No matter who saw this scene, they would think that it was intentional. This time, even if they jumped into the Yellow River, they would not be able to clear their names. Fortunately, Duan Muyu did not continue to blame him. After getting off from Lin Yi, she did not say anything. She just walked over and picked up the clothes she had just taken off. However, when she found the clothes and looked at them, she suddenly froze. After being affected by the true chi pill firebomb just now, her clothes were tattered and full of holes. How could she wear them? The key was that apart from the clothes she had taken off, she did not bring any other clothes to change into. What should she do next? She could not go out to the trial wearing these underwear. No matter how free and unrestrained she was still a woman. This time she was forced to be seen by Lin Yi, but if she was seen by others, how could she live? Can't wear it? It's okay, I have it. Lin Yi quickly handed over a set of clothes, which were prepared for other girls in the space of the jade pendant. Last time he gave it to Hui Yudi to wear, and this time it came in handy for Duan Muyu. Are these clothes from the secular world? Duan Muyu took the clothes and glanced at them. Without saying anything, she put them on directly. Not to mention, when she put them on, she had the temperament of a strong woman in the city. Lin Yi was still thinking about the mutilated corpse on the ground, but Duan Muyu suddenly said, "You have a lot of women?" Lin Yi looked at her. Why did she say that for no reason? In addition to these who came with you to the trial, if I'm not wrong, you have other women in other places, right? Duan Muyu said casually. How did you know? Lin Yi was surprised. Because the size of this dress is wrong and the ones with you don't match. Duan Muyu said firmly. Lin Yi could not help sweating. What kind of eyes did this woman have? She could even see this. This was not in line with her usual manly temperament. You are a playboy. Duan Muyu came to a conclusion and then asked, since you're a primordial spirit, where did these clothes come from? Just think of it as me. Lin Yi kept them guessing. Duan Muyu nodded and did not continue to ask. She was a sensible person. He knew what to ask and what not to ask. Alright, let's get out of here first. Lin Yi called out. He felt a little strange now. Since the water lily protector had been killed by him, why was she still here? Then why didn't this mirror world collapse on the spot? Could it be that this space wasn't maintained by his ability, but was already a solidified space? The two immediately passed through the tent and came out. Fortunately, the situation that Lin Yi was most worried about did not happen. The only exit to the real world was not blocked. Otherwise he would be at a loss. However, Lin Yi and Duan Muyu were not happy for long. After they passed through it, they realized that something was wrong. There was no exit in the stairway ahead. It was just a facade. Lin Yi's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Another mirror world? It can't be? Duan Muyu still did not believe it. In her opinion, the water lotus protector was clearly dead. It was understandable that the previous mirror world could be left behind. How could there be another mirror world? Moreover, even if it was a mirror world, it did not appear out of thin air. It had to be connected to the real world in order to be reflected. It couldn't be that it was a mirror world just now and now it was also a mirror world. There was not even a basic prototype, right? Duan Muyu did not believe it and personally climbed the stairway. At first, there was nothing strange, but after climbing about 1,000 feet, no matter how she tried, she could not take another step forward. It was hazy in front of her, and there was always an invisible barrier blocking her. Not only could she not see the situation in front of her at all, but even her divine sense was useless. It was as if she had really reached the end of the world. It's useless. This is the mirror world created by that guy. Limited by its ability, this mirror world can only reflect so much. Otherwise, if it could really expand infinitely and even reflect the entire world, it would not be the water lotus protector, but the legendary god of creation. Lin Yi shook his head. Then what should we do? Duan Muyu was completely confused by this fact. Both were mirror worlds. How could they get out? Don't worry. Since this mirror world was created by looking at a mirror, there must be a place that is connected to the real world. As long as we are careful, we will be able to find the exit. Lin Yi comforted her. Duan Muyu nodded. She was not an ordinary woman. Most of the time she was much more carefree than most men. It was normal for her to be confused when she encountered such an unimaginable situation, but it was not to the extent that she would lose her composure. The two of them immediately began to explore along the edge of this mirror world. Fortunately, it was only about 10 kilometers in radius, so it did not take long for them to go around it. Otherwise, if this mirror world was really boundless, the two of them would really be at their wits' end. Of course, if that was the case, it was still unknown whether they would be able to discover anything strange so quickly. Perhaps they would even think that this was the real world. Finally, the two of them went around to the tent, looked at each other, and stopped. There's nothing unusual in other places. This is the only place left, Duan Muyu said in a low voice. Well, it seems that this tent is the only entrance to this mirror world. Lin Yi nodded in agreement. With his divine sense, he should not miss any flaws in theory. After all, the level of his body was much higher than this water lotus protector. Even if his strength was limited because of his primordial spirit, it was at most because he had too little primordial spirit. The difference in quality between their primordial spirits could not be changed. In other words, the entrance to the real world should be in the mirror world on the other side? Duan Muyu said without hesitation and immediately walked through the tent. This woman is quite decisive. Seeing this, Lin Yi could not help but laugh. If it were any other woman facing such a situation, even if they did not panic, they would most likely hide behind him. They would not be as bold and decisive as Duan Muyu. Following closely behind Duan Muyu, Lin Yi immediately passed through the tent. At the moment he passed through, he suddenly had a faint feeling. What's wrong? Duan Muyu turned around and asked. Don't you feel a little strange when you pass through? Lin Yi asked with a frown. What's strange? Duan Muyu was confused. She thought about it carefully and said, I don't feel anything different. It's the same as when I just passed through. Chapter 5260. Then what about before? Lin Yi continued to ask. In fact, when he thought about it carefully, he also had this strange feeling just now, but it had never appeared before. Before? I went through it once when I followed him in before, and I've forgotten what it felt like. Duan Muyu shook her head with a bitter smile. She couldn't be blamed for this. Lin Yi was able to detect this slight abnormality not entirely because of his keen perception, but mainly because he had repeatedly entered and exited it several times before to ensure his escape route. Duan Muyu only went through it once, so naturally she couldn't detect it. However, even if Lin Yi noticed this slight abnormality, it was useless because he couldn't trace the source of this abnormality. Since he couldn't even find the source, there was no way to talk about the so-called countermeasures. Let's explore it first. Lin Yi said and took the lead to walk forward, but after taking a few steps he stopped. Duan Muyu was a little puzzled when she saw this, but when she took a look at the scene in front of her, she was also shocked. The big tent was still the same big tent, and all kinds of decorations were no different from the real world. Whether it was the spatial layout or the scenery, there was nothing unusual. However, it was the lack of any abnormality that was the biggest abnormality. Don't forget that Lin Yi had killed the water lotus in this place, but there wasn't that incomplete body in front of him, nor was there any remains from the explosion of the pure chi pill firebomb. Instead, it was clean without a speck of dust. Isn't this the mirror world just now? Duan Muyu couldn't help but look like she had seen a ghost, but at the same time she felt a little lucky. If this was not the mirror world, could it be the real world? No matter who was in this situation, they would inevitably have a trace of luck in their hearts. Even Lin Yi was no exception. Unfortunately, after he and Duan Muyu went out for a walk, this trace of luck was immediately shattered. This was not the original mirror world, nor was it the real world, but another mirror world. Not only that, but this mirror world also had no flaws. It still only had the tent as the only entrance and exit. Back in front of the tent, Lin Yi and Duan Muyu fell into silence at the same time. The situation was getting more and more complicated and inexplicable. At the same time, they were more and more at a loss. Not only were there mirror worlds on both sides, but the mirror world was not the original one. What was going on? After a long time, Duan Muyu raised her head and looked at Lin Yi. Although she didn't speak, it was obvious that she was asking Lin Yi what he should do next. Let's keep trying. Lin Yi looked thoughtfully at the tent in front of him. Since he couldn't find any flaws, he could only continue experimenting. Only when he figured out a certain pattern would he be able to find a way to break it. With that, Lin Yi was about to step through the tent, but he suddenly paused at the last moment. He took out a piece of clothing from the space in the jade pendant and threw it on the ground. This was the clothing of a girl in the secular world. In this mirror world, it was a unique symbol. Duan Muyu immediately understood Lin Yi's intention and said, "You want to verify if this mirror world will become another one later?" "That's right." Lin Yi nodded. At this moment, he already had a bold guess, and this piece of clothing should be able to prove it to a certain extent. It's just a piece of clothing that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Why don't we temporarily separate and use a living person like me as a symbol? Wouldn't it be more reliable? Duan Muyu suggested boldly. No. Lin Yi shook his head decisively. He looked at the mirror world around him and smiled bitterly. If I'm not wrong, when we return to this place again, this piece of clothing will most likely disappear. If that's the case, once you and I are separated, it will be very difficult for us to meet again. This? Duan Muyu was shocked when she heard this. In this kind of situation, it was much better for the two of them to be together than to fight on their own. Especially for her, if she followed Lin Yi, she would have a chance of escaping, but if she was alone, her chances of survival would be really slim. Sure enough, as Lin Yi expected, when he brought Duan Muyu through the tent and back, the piece of clothing he had just left behind had indeed disappeared without a trace. This was another brand new mirror world. What exactly did you see? Duan Muyu couldn't help but ask. I think I know why I can't get rid of that strange feeling after going through the tent. Lin Yi paused before changing the topic. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? Yeah. Lin Yi said. Of course. Duan Muyu looked puzzled. Then have you looked in 2 mirrors at the same time? Lin Yi asked again. Looking in 2 mirrors at the same time? Duan Muyu didn't understand for a moment. It was only when Lin Yi stretched out his hand and gestured that he understood. Lin Yi meant that he was standing in the middle of 2 large mirrors facing each other, reflecting each other. You mean that a mirror can only reflect one mirror world, but if there are 2 mirrors facing each other, they can reflect countless mirror worlds? Duan Muyu understood immediately. Lin Yi's guess was quite in line with the current situation. Other than this possibility, it was hard to explain anything else. That's right, this is the source of that strange feeling I was talking about. When I was confirming my escape route, I was going back and forth between the real world and the mirror world, but now I'm going back and forth between 2 mirror worlds. The 2 are different. Lin Yi explained. That difference is negligible. Your perception is so sharp? Duan Muyu was surprised. Although she didn't experiment as many times as Lin Yi, she still remembered a general idea. Even if there was a difference between the 2, it was at most 1,000th or even 1/10,000th. Lin Yi was actually able to accurately capture this point and reverse engineer the conjecture of 2 mirrors. Such insight was simply incredible. I'm just a primordial spirit. If I don't even have this little perception, wouldn't I be useless? Lin Yi smiled. But I still have a question. If there are really 2 mirrors like you said, why is its corpse gone and the clothes you just lost gone? Duan Muyu asked with a frown. 2 mirrors could explain the source of these mirror worlds, but this still couldn't be explained. If these mirror worlds reflected each other, in theory as long as any one of them changed, the others should also change. It wouldn't be indifferent, right? Chapter 5261. No matter what has happened in these mirror worlds, as long as the real world, which is the original reflection, has not changed, then everything will continue to be calm. No matter what has happened, as long as we go out and come back, what we see will always be a mirror world that is exactly the same as the real world outside. Lin Yi's tone was quite certain when he said this. Duan Muyu looked Lin Yi up and down without blinking, until Lin Yi felt uncomfortable all over. She suddenly laughed bitterly. I used to think that Ling Tianyu and the others were the limit that geniuses could reach, but I didn't expect that I was still a frog in the well. You really are a monster. It was still acceptable if Lin Yi was only strong, but even his insight was so abnormal. This really made people feel helpless. Duan Muyu had never been a person who would easily admit defeat. Even people like Lung Lung and Ling Tianyu, who were peerless talents, could only make her feel pressured at most. However, facing Lin Yi now, she really felt a little inferior. You flatter me. Lin Yi smiled embarrassedly. Not at all. Duan Muyu shook her head, but then she was stunned and said in surprise, Huh? Why is there an echo? It's not an echo. The voice just now belonged to the Water Lotus Protector. Am I right? Lin Yi looked around and said, Wonderful, very wonderful. To be able to deduce your own situation so quickly, you are indeed extraordinary. You are the first human in history to do so. The Water Lotus Protector's voice sounded again, but it came from all directions and for a moment, it was impossible to determine its location and direction. Is still alive? Duan Muyu was shocked. Lin Yi was not surprised at all. From the moment he discovered the second mirror world, he had actually concluded that this guy must be still alive, but he had not pointed it out. Of course I'm still alive. Madam, you are too naive. After all, I am a dignified Water Lotus Protector. How can I be killed so easily? But then again, this human sneak attack just now could be said to be perfect. If it wasn't for my special ability, he might really have succeeded. Protector Water Lily said with a smile that was not a smile. It sounds like you're very proud of yourself, Lin Yi said. Human, you're wrong. I'm not proud, I'm excited. It's been a long time since I've met an opponent who knows what's good for them. The other losers showed their true colors as soon as they came in, and they couldn't even withstand a single blow. It's a waste of my brilliant moon's reflection. It doesn't feel good to play a lute to a cow. Hearing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but be amused. Sir, are you saying that I'm your soulmate? Of course, the saddest thing in the world is to be alone. I have such a mysterious and profound ability, but no one can appreciate it. Don't you think it's a waste? Protector Water Lily said with a hint of pride in her voice. Hearing this, Lin Yi and Duan Muyu couldn't help but look at each other speechlessly. They didn't know that this guy was so good at self-pity. Human, to be honest, I quite admire you. I originally planned to kill you two adulterers, but now I've changed my mind. I'm going to trap you like this and let you spend the rest of your life admiring my moon's reflection, Protector Water Lily said. Hearing this, Linny was stunned, but he ignored the second half of this guy's words. He quickly turned his head and looked at Duan Muyu. We're adulterers? Duan Muyu recalled the situation just now and smiled bitterly. In the eyes of the world, even if the two of us aren't adulterers, I'm afraid we're not far from it. Indeed, just based on the fact that Linny had hugged him in a hurry and Duan Muyu was only wearing his underwear, the accusation of adulterers was no longer unjust. I'm sorry for ruining your reputation, Linny apologized. It's all right, I should thank you instead. Duan Muyu bowed. Seeing the two of them being polite, Protector Water Lily couldn't stand it anymore and said angrily, Hey, you still don't understand your situation, do you? Of course not. Didn't you confirm my suspicions just now? Linny asked faintly. That's right, human, you've indeed guessed the principle of the moon's reflection, but what's the use? Can you find a way to break it? Protector Water Lily said fearlessly. Not yet. Linny was very honest. This was the truth. Even if he guessed that this was the result of two mirrors, finding the original real world was easier said than done. This was almost an unsolvable proposition. Just because you know there's no way to break it, you're going to give up? Diske, that's a wise choice, Protector Water Lily said mockingly. Hee, which eye of yours can see that I'm giving up? Linny still had a smile on his face. Apart from giving up on yourself, can you do anything else? Protector Water Lily sneered. Who knows? This isn't a difficult thing to do. What if I'm lucky and accidentally run into a dead mouse? Linny said calmly. It's not a difficult thing? Haha, I really admire you more and more, human. Alright, I'm bored anyway, so I'll take a good look at how you run into a dead mouse. Protector Water Lily laughed loudly. Don't worry, I won't let you be bored. Before Linny finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared, giving Duan Muyu a big fright. She thought it was Protector Water Lily's trick, but it was the opposite. In the next moment, Lin Yi's figure suddenly appeared at the top of the tent, and in front of him stood Protector Water Lily in her human form. They were only one step away from each other. Protector Water Lily was stunned for a moment. Only then did he finally realize that Linny had said so much to him just now in order to lock onto his position and launch another sneak attack. He was really cunning. Wishful thinking. Protector Water Lily laughed loudly. It was understandable that Lin Yi had succeeded in his sneak attack because he was not sure of Lin Yi's existence, so he was not mentally prepared. This time he was already on guard. If Lin Yi still succeeded in his sneak attack, it would be too unreasonable. Protector Water Lily immediately rushed forward. This was the mirror world that he had personally created, and he was like a fish in water here. His strength was much higher than outside and his speed had more than doubled. Chapter 5262. Boom. It was another mutilated corpse. It's dead again? Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Duan Muyu couldn't help but stare blankly. It had been knocked down by Lin Yi twice in a row. Wasn't this water lily protector a little too cowardly? It's not that easy. This should just be a little toy. This guy is deliberately playing hide and seek with us. Lin Yi shook his head lightly. What's next? Duan Muyu asked. Now that the situation was clear, they were still at a loss on how to get out. They couldn't think of a countermeasure at all, which made them even more frustrated and powerless. If we want to crack these two mirrors, we definitely won't be able to find the real world if we look for them one by one. That way we will only fall deeper and deeper. Lin Yi pinched his chin thoughtfully. But we can't just sit here and wait for death, can we? Duan Muyu frowned. There's only one way. As long as we use brute force to break these two mirrors, these mirror worlds will collapse on their own. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. This was the simplest and most brutal way of thinking. Once the mirror was broken, there would naturally be no mirror worlds. Use brute force? Is that possible? Duan Muyu was full of doubts. If he wanted to break the mirror with brute force, he had to be far more powerful than the water lily protector. However, the other party was at least standing at the top of the golden core stage. If he wanted to do this, Lin Yi would have to be a nascent soul stage-old monster. Unfortunately, not only was Lin Yi not a nascent soul stage-old monster, he wasn't even a golden core stage master. He was only at the perfected foundation establishment stage. Impossible. Lin Yi's answer was quite discouraging. Then isn't there no other way? Duan Muyu looked at him and said. Not necessarily. Lin Yi pondered for a moment and said slowly, the principle of this mirror is as I said just now, it's two mirrors that contrast each other, but after all it's not really two mirrors. What do you mean? Duan Muyu was confused. Tracing back to its roots, these mirror worlds were created by its ability. I dare say that its main body must be hiding in these mirror worlds, Lin Yi speculated. You're looking for its main body? Duan Muyu suddenly understood. I'm afraid this is the only way out. It's not realistic for us to return to the real world just like that. We can only find its main body, Lin Yi decided. But, how do we find him? Duan Muyu asked. She also knew that only by finding Protector Water Lily's true body would there be a chance. But how could she find so many mirror worlds? Let's try our luck. Lin Yi smiled meaningfully. Ah, trying my luck? Duan Muyu looked at him with a puzzled expression. If he could find the true body of the water lily purely by relying on luck, he might as well try his luck and get out. Was that even possible? Follow me closely. Lin Yi didn't explain much and led the way through the tent. Although Duan Muyu didn't understand why, she knew that there must be a deeper meaning behind his actions, so she immediately followed closely. But this time, before she could completely pass through the tent, Lin Yi suddenly retracted his foot and at the same time, pulled her back. What? Duan Muyu was shocked. She thought that Protector Water Lily had taken the opportunity to attack her. It wasn't until she realized that it was Lin Yi that she relaxed and asked in surprise, "What are you doing?" "Look for yourself." Lin Yi pointed behind him. Duan Muyu took a look and couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Why is the corpse gone?" This was different from before. Previously, the two of them had completely traversed through another mirror world and then came back. What they saw was a brand new mirror world, but the one in front of them clearly still had the remains of Lin Yi's true Chi Pill Fire Bomb, and the two of them hadn't completely left just now, which was enough to prove that this mirror world was the original one. However, the mirror world was still the original mirror world, and the incomplete corpse of Protector Water Lily had disappeared. It seems that our luck is not bad. Lin Yi nodded. What good luck? What the hell is going on with the corpse? Duan Muyu asked with a frown. She thought that her IQ wasn't bad, but in the face of today's situation she really couldn't keep up with the rhythm. From time to time she would be confused. If I'm not wrong, that corpse should have been taken back by its main body. Otherwise, I'm afraid that abandoning it would be an unforgivable waste of energy. Lin Yi's mouth curled up slightly. It was taken back by its main body? Duan Muyu thought for a moment and couldn't help but think deeply. That's right, in this place apart from us there's only Protector Water Lily. The only one who would do something to that corpse is itself. If it hadn't given me the hint, I wouldn't have realized this. The lotus root is broken and the thread is still connected. Lin Yi laughed. This time it was really that guy who had shot himself in the foot. If it hadn't shown its ability to connect even when the lotus root is broken, he really wouldn't have thought in this direction. But even so, I'm afraid this isn't of any substantial help to us. Why do you say that our luck is not bad? Duan Muyu was still a little surprised. Oh, because I just did something to its corpse. If it didn't take back the corpse, my actions would have been in vain, and it would have been extremely difficult for us to find its main body. As for now, Lin Yi didn't continue and just chuckled with a somewhat profound expression. Duan Muyu was delighted when she heard this, and tactfully didn't ask what he had done. It wasn't that she didn't want to know, but that Lin Yi naturally had his reasons for not telling her. Once he did, what if the water lily heard him? Although the clone in this mirror world had been dealt with, who knew if it had other means of monitoring them? At the end of the day, these mirror worlds were all its territory, and they had to be careful with their every move and every word. From now on you have to follow me closely. No matter where I go, you must not hesitate at all. Otherwise, if we're not careful, we'll be separated into two mirror worlds. When that happens, it'll be troublesome. Lin Yi said seriously. Once the two of them were separated here, it would be more difficult to find each other than to find the water lily's main body, or even the real world. The chances of them reuniting here were almost zero. I understand. Duan Muyu nodded heavily. Alright, then I'll begin. As Lin Yi spoke, he immediately passed through the tent, and Duan Muyu followed closely behind. However, as soon as Duan Muyu stepped out of the mirror world, she found that Lin Yi had retreated, and she hurriedly returned to the mirror world behind her. Chapter 5263. Not bad, we're close. Lin Yi said without rhyme or reason. Duan Muyu had no idea what he was talking about. She looked at Lin Yi's back with an even more unfathomable gaze. She couldn't help but mutter in her heart, this man is really unfathomable. Duan Muyu didn't dare to disturb Lin Yi. He stood in front of her and pondered for a moment, then suddenly walked forward. The two of them directly passed through the tent and came to the mirror world on the opposite side. Huh? So far away? Lin Yi frowned slightly, then turned around and passed through the tent again. This time he did not directly pass through to the mirror world on the opposite side. Instead, he waited for Duan Muyu to follow him out and then retreated like before. A little further. Lin Yi thought for a while, then without saying a word, he passed through to the mirror world on the opposite side. When he stood still, a smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, it's a lot closer. Duan Muyu, who was following behind him, still had a puzzled look on her face. Not only did she not figure out what was going on, but she was even more confused. What was going on? Unfortunately, at this time, no matter how eager she was, she didn't dare to ask rashly. She could only follow behind Lin Yi mechanically. The only thing she had to do was to keep up. She only needed to know that Lin Yi had figured out a certain pattern and was getting closer and closer to the target. Next, Lin Yi's actions became more and more incomprehensible. He basically brought Duan Muyu out and back again and again. He repeated this countless times until Duan Muyu was about to get dizzy. Finally he stopped. Aren't we going? Duan Muyu asked carefully. If she only had some simple admiration for Lin Yi before, then now she had a bit of worship. This kind of worship was probably similar to the worship of a bad student facing a top student. There's no need to go, we're already there. Lin Yi looked back and smiled. You mean? Duan Muyu was stunned when he heard this. Then he reacted and was shocked. You mean you found its main body? Lin Yi nodded and directly walked out of the tent. Duan Muyu followed closely behind. He glanced at the familiar scene in front of him and said, "This is no different from those mirror worlds from before?" Of course there's no difference because this is just one of the many mirror worlds. The only special thing is that the guy's real body is hidden here, Lin Yi said confidently. Really? Duan Muyu looked carefully again and again, but he didn't find anything strange. He couldn't help but ask doubtfully, how do you know that its main body is here? Just watch and you'll know. Lin Yi smiled mysteriously as he brought Duan Muyu to the giant tree hole where the stairway was. There was a sizable pond here, and he pointed at a small water lily on the surface of the pond. Here, this is it. This is the guy's main body? Duan Muyu's eyeballs almost popped out. The water lily in front of him was surprisingly small, only the size of a normal person's palm. Even if it was placed in front of him, he wouldn't notice it. Could this be the water lily protector's main body? Yes, it is. Seeing that Duan Muyu didn't believe it, Lin Yi casually blasted a 5 elements killing chi at the water lily, but it didn't cause any damage when it hit it. It was obvious that there was a layer of faint ripples that blocked it and easily resolved it. Although he still found it a little unbelievable, Duan Muyu already believed that this small, unassuming water lily should be the water lily protector's main body. Sure enough, a figure suddenly appeared on the small water lily. It was the water lily protector in human form. It gave Lin Yi a thumbs up across the pond. Amazing. Amazing. You actually found this place. It seems that my praise for you was too conservative. You are the only one in history to be able to reach this step. You are indeed a talent. You flatter me. Lin Yi smiled faintly. The water lily protector didn't attack immediately. Instead, it sat down on its small water lily and looked at Lin Yi with interest. I'm very curious how you found me. How did you know that my main body is here? Guess. Lin Yi wasn't interested in explaining everything to it. If he wanted to get out of here today, this water lily protector was a powerful opponent that he had to overcome. At this time, it would only be good for him to keep it in suspense and make it feel unfathomable. In fact, Duan Muyu was also very curious about this question. Unfortunately, even though she had followed Lin Yi all the way, she was still confused about this question. Let me guess? Okay, then I'll guess. The water lily protector didn't seem angry at all. It said in a low voice, "My moonlight in the mirror has no flaws. If you relied on yourself, you shouldn't be able to find me in this lifetime." You're that confident? The corners of Lin Yi's mouth curled up. Although that was what he said, even he had to admit that even if this fellow's moonlight in the mirror was not as flawless as it claimed, it was indeed an extremely unsolvable illusory existence. It was almost impossible to find its flaws for no reason. Of course, if I didn't even have this little bit of confidence, how could I enter the eyes of that lord? The water lily protector grinned and continued to analyze. Since the moonlight in the mirror has no flaws, then there's only one problem. It must be me. You must have found some clues on me and found your way here, right? Lin Yi looked at it with a smile that wasn't quite a smile. My weakness should be in the 2 doppelgangers I sent out. To be precise, it should be in the second doppelganger. At this point, the water lily suddenly paused and then her eyes lit up. You used my broken lotus connection, right? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. This water lily protector was not simple. It had actually deduced this with just a few words. Duanwu still hadn't reacted. Lin Yi had indeed said that the broken lotus root was still connected. She also knew that Lin Yi was using this to make a fuss, but she didn't know how Lin Yi had done it. Soon, the water lily protector revealed the mystery. Divine sense imprint. You actually left a divine sense imprint on my clone's corpse. Wonderful. It's a pity that you didn't become a detective with your keen insight, Lin Yi said lightly. This was not a pure joke. This fellow was actually able to deduce the truth on his own in such a short period of time. Ordinary people really couldn't do that. Chapter 5264. Simply put, Lin Yi had left an undetectable divine sense imprint on the corpse of the other party's second doppelganger. When the other party retrieved the doppelganger's corpse, the divine sense imprint would naturally be transferred to the main body. In this way, Lin Yi had found a clear coordinate in the countless mirror worlds. Next, with the coordinates of the main body, he could further explore the rules of these mirror worlds and finally come here. Otherwise, even if Lin Yi's divine sense was sharp, he would not be able to find any rules. Just as the water lily had said, the moon in the mirror was unsolvable. However, although it sounded easy, the process of exploring the rules was actually not easy. For most ordinary people, even if they knew the coordinates of the main body, it was difficult for them to further explore any rules. The world could be roughly divided into three types of people. 99% of the people could only understand 100 numbers after watching people count from 1 to 100. These were the ordinary people. Among the remaining 1%, 99% of the people could derive the next 99 numbers on their own after knowing the number 1. These were the talents. The remaining 1% of the people could find the number 1 on their own, much less the next 99. These were the geniuses. There was no doubt that Lin Yi could be classified as a genius. Although Duanwu was a little worse, he was at least a real talent. Thinking back to what Lin Yi had done just now, she could also sum up the rules of the moon in the mirror. Just as Lin Yi had said at the beginning, the principle of the moon in the mirror was that two mirrors were compared to each other, and the body of the water lily was hidden in one of the mirror worlds. Every time Lin Yi passed through a mirror world, he could calculate the distance between them through the divine sense imprint on it. There was a very basic and intuitive rule in the arrangement of these mirror worlds, which was that they were arranged on the left and right sides of the two mirrors. After the first few tests, Lin Yi quickly understood another basic rule. If he went straight through the tent, he would enter the mirror world on the opposite side. If he went backwards, he would enter the mirror world on the same side. As long as he figured out this pattern, the next step was to keep experimenting and gradually get closer to his final goal. Lin Yi did this, but Duanwu didn't know about the spiritual awareness imprint before, so she was confused. Otherwise, she should have realized it a long time ago. Detective? What do you mean? Protector Water Lily was stunned. Oh, it's a profession that relies on your brain to make a living. Only smart people can do it. You might even have the chance to become a famous detective, Lin Yi said playfully. It's very simple for you to think this through. It was only because I was careless that you succeeded. Otherwise, if I had carefully checked and removed your divine sense imprint, you would have been at a loss. The water lily began to regret her mistake. Does this count as hindsight? Lin Yi glanced at him. Hindsight is wise. What the hell is that? The water lily obviously didn't know who Zhuge Liang was, but she didn't really care about these details. Instead, she said, speaking of which, although your idea is simple, it's really difficult for ordinary people to do this. Without such fast reaction and insight, even if you can think of this method later, you won't have a chance. Moreover, even with the spiritual awareness imprint as a reference, it's difficult for ordinary people to use it to figure out the internal rules of my mirror flower, water moon. Again, you're a talent. I'm flattered that you think so highly of me, Lin Yi said lightly. Wrong, I don't have the habit of praising people. I always tell the truth. I said before that I would trap you here for the rest of your life, but now I've changed my mind. I plan to recruit you to be my assistant. What do you think? The water lily suddenly said. You want to recruit me? Lin Yi and Duanwu looked at each other when they heard this, and both of them revealed strange expressions. Of course, special people get special treatment. It's rare to meet such a smart friend like you. If I kill you just like that, wouldn't it be a pity? The water lily looked at Lin Yi with a hint of admiration in her eyes, but it wasn't admiration on an equal level. Instead, it was more like she was admiring an antique. If that's the case, shouldn't I be flattered? Lin Yi's expression suddenly became even more playful. You should be flattered. You should have died here, but now I've given you a way to live, and it's a way to enjoy endless glory and wealth. You're a smart person, so you should know that this kind of good thing is rare in the world. If you miss this opportunity, you won't get it again. The water lily gave him an ultimatum. What if I say no? Lin Yi asked. Then only death awaits you. We're both smart people, so you shouldn't be so untactful, right? The water lily's tone gradually became cold. I'm sorry, but I really don't know how to write the word untactful. Lin Yi said calmly. The water lily looked at him deeply and sneered. Don't tell me you're still thinking about getting lucky? Do you really think that you'll have a chance to escape just because you found my real body? I can only say that you're too naive, human. It's indeed impressive that you were able to find this place, but it's useless. Is that so? Lin Yi chuckled disapprovingly. The water lily was stunned when she saw this and couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Did this human have some other life-saving trump card? Of course, she knew that Lin Yi wasn't a fool. Since he dared to treat her like this, he must have something to rely on. He couldn't possibly be seeking death. What are you laughing at? The water lily frowned for the first time. No particular reason, I just think it's funny. Lin Yi shrugged and Duanmuyu smiled. To be honest, she had been quite nervous since just now. After all, she was facing the water lily's real body, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that she was under a lot of pressure. But now that she saw Lin Yi like this, she couldn't help but relax a lot. Funny? Don't forget that this is still within the range of the moon's reflection. This is my world and I'm the only ruler. The water lily sneered. Chapter 5265. In terms of might, the 2 true Chi-Core fire bombs were already the limits of what he could produce. Throwing 2 at once was no joke. If it were a spirit beast at the level of the primordial Gomang King, it would definitely die. Although the water lily protector in front of him was in existence at the same level as the brain-eating worm and was much stronger than the ancient Gomang King, it was obviously a skill-based spirit beast. In theory, it would not have a thick skin like the brain-eating worm. Perhaps the difficulty in dealing with it was to find its main body. Perhaps its main body was not much stronger than its avatar, and 2 real Chi-Pill fire bombs could easily deal with it. As a result, the water lily protector showed a contemptuous smile on its face. It seemed to have made up its mind to open Lin Yi's eyes. Seeing this, it did not dodge or counterattack but let the 2 real Chi-Pill fire bombs hit its body. Lin Yi and Duanmuyu's eyes widened at the same time. However, the next moment, the expected earth-shattering explosion did not appear. They only saw 2 faint ripples flash on the surface of the water lily protector's body, and then the 2 real Chi-Pill fire bombs disappeared. They did not even make the slightest noise, becoming 2 complete duds. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. This was the first time someone had used this method to neutralize the real Chi-Pill fire bombs. It was the same way as the 5 elements murderous Chi attack. This water lily protector was really unbeatable. Now you know the gap between you and me? The water lily protector smiled mysteriously. Lin Yi was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "This is the old well of tranquility? I didn't expect a human like you to not only be smart, but also so knowledgeable. You actually know about my old well of tranquility?" The water lily protector could not help but be a little surprised. "It's nothing. When you were fighting with the brain-eating worm at the banquet, I just happened to hear the brain-eating worm mention this word," Lin Yi said lightly. "I see. Since you have seen my strength, what are you going to do next?" The water lily protector had a playful look on his face. "Well, your excellency's strength is extraordinary. Not only do you have an almost unsolvable illusory space, but you also have a helpless defense like the old well of tranquility. With these 2 divine skills, your excellency can dominate an area." Lin Yi said truthfully. "That's right. Before the Lord came here, I was the #1 overlord of this place. Only that of the talented of the insect could slightly compete with me. Even if all of the other big and small spirit beasts were added together, I could kill them as I pleased." The water lily protector said proudly. "Since your excellency is so powerful, why are you willing to submit to that lord's subordinates? You are nominally a protector, but in fact you are just a lackey." Lin Yi asked. The water lily protector suddenly fell silent. After a long time she came back to her senses and said mockingly, "Human, don't waste your time. Whether you want to find out about that lord from me or sow discord between me and that lord, it's all in vain. I'm not an idiot who only has muscles and no brains. I won't be fooled so easily. All right. Linny was a little disappointed. This primordial trial ground was full of danger. Compared to the water lily protector and the brain-eating insect, the primordial Gomang King and the others were considered easy to deal with. However, the biggest threat still came from that omnipresent lord. An existence that could control the water lily protector and the brain-eating insect was definitely not to be underestimated. If he could not find a way to figure out that lord's background, even if he could successfully escape this time, he would still be on tenterhooks in the future. Enough with the nonsense. I'll now give you one last chance to back out. Human, think carefully before you answer me. Are you going to accept my offer and become my assistant, or choose to die here? The water lily protector said solemnly. I've thought it through very clearly. I won't be your assistant, nor will I die here. I have a third option. Linny smiled faintly. A third option? Interesting. I'd like to hear where you got the third option. The water lily protector's eyes narrowed into slits. Linny thought carefully and suddenly smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, I miscalculated. To be precise, there should be a third and fourth option. A third and a fourth? The water lily protector was stunned for a moment and said disdainfully, All right, then explain to me what the third and fourth options are. As the saying goes, it's impolite not to reciprocate. Since your excellency thinks so highly of me and has given me two options, then I have to give your excellency two options in return. One is for me to kill you and the other is for me to subdue you. What do you think, your excellency? Linny smiled and said tit for tat. Kill me? Subdue me? Ah. The water lily protector did not get angry. Instead, she laughed so hard that she could not control herself. After a long time, she barely stopped laughing and said playfully, Interesting, very interesting. Humans are indeed very interesting creatures. You are a typical example. Is that interesting? Linny squinted at her and smiled faintly. Of course it's interesting. If you met an ant and told you that it wanted to kill you and subdue you, wouldn't you find it interesting? The water lily protector laughed. Lin Yi's performance just now was indeed impressive, but it was at most a little smarter than ordinary people. It could not change his weak ant nature. From the beginning to the end, the water lily protector did not treat him as a real opponent. He was just a fun toy. Haven't you heard of this saying, sir? Linny smiled. What is it? The water lily protector asked curiously. You can't judge a book by its cover. Linny said lightly. You can't judge a book by its cover. It's a good thing to be ambitious, but unfortunately, no matter how ambitious you are, you can't change the lowly nature of an ant. You should know very well that I am the master of this place. It is easy for me to kill you, but... The water lily protector paused and said with a disdainful look, Don't say that I'm bullying you. I'll give you a chance to see how you kill me and subdue me. Duan Muyu looked at Linny nervously. From her point of view, the water lily protector was almost invincible. Even if it did not attack and just stood there and let you attack it, there was nothing you could do to it. Not to mention anything else, just its calmness alone was enough to make people shrink back. Chapter 5266. Duanmu, you really couldn't think of how to deal with such an unbeatable opponent. However, Linny seemed to have a card up his sleeve. The water lotus protector was looking down on him, but his attitude at the moment was as if he was going to defeat the other party. Such an expression really puzzled the water lotus protector. Where did this human's confidence come from? Before that, I want to say something else. The water lotus is one of many plants, so what's the difference between you and those elixirs? Linny suddenly asked. Hearing this, the water lotus protector was confused at first, but then he laughed out loud. That's right, if I didn't have the opportunity to cultivate to this stage, I can only be considered a spirit medicine. Otherwise, why would I spend so much effort to create 100 herb garden? Those are all of my race. If the opportunity is good enough, maybe the next me will appear among them. Well, then I'm relieved. Linny smiled faintly. Relieved? Relieved about what? Not only the water lotus protector, but even Duanmu Yu also had a puzzled look on her face. What was Linny up to? In the end, Linny waved his hand and then nothing happened. Pretending to be mysterious. The water lotus protector sneered. Duanmu Yu looked at Linny and didn't know what to say. Since Linny was so confident, she thought that he would have to use his trump card. At the very least, the power would be much stronger than the real Chi Pill firebomb just now. Otherwise, how could he deal with the water lotus protector? She never thought that Linny would be so calm and collected from the beginning to the end, but there was no movement at all. How could this be tolerated? Linny didn't feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he said indifferently, "Do you really think I didn't do anything?" It was only then that Duanmuyu suddenly reacted and subconsciously exclaimed, "How did I become a primordial spirit?" Although the moon's reflection was an illusion, it trapped their true bodies. There was no such thing as extracting their primordial spirits. Duanmuyu was still fine until just now, but in the blink of an eye, he had become a primordial spirit. "Sorry, in order to make it easier for you to watch the show, I took the initiative to drag you in. Don't worry, it'll be fine." Lin Yi turned his head and explained apologetically. "Oh, nothing." Duanmuyu still didn't quite understand what was going on, but since it was Lin Yi who did it, she had nothing to worry about. Unknowingly, Lin Yi had established a rather reliable impression in her mind. It was really rare to see someone who could make her trust him so subconsciously. At the same time, the water lotus protector on the other side was completely stunned and couldn't say a word for a long time. Duanmuyu did not know what was going on, but it had clearly sensed the source of the problem. Of course, it was different from Duanmuyu. Duanmuyu was now a primordial spirit while it was still in its main body. What did you do? Why can't I sense the other mirror worlds?" The water lotus protector finally revealed a look of shock. This was the first time it had lost its confidence in controlling everything. Although what Lin Yi had done had surprised it, it couldn't change anything. It was just like how Sun Wukong could never escape the palm of the Buddha no matter how hard he tried. But this time it was different. The Buddha felt that it couldn't protect it anymore. The mirror world was still the same mirror world and it didn't feel like it had changed at all. However, the problem was that this mirror world had been isolated into another space, and the cause of this, could do nothing about it. "Isn't that simple? It's because I've broken your mirror image." Lin Yi smiled mysteriously. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." The water lotus protector refused to believe it. There was only a difference of one word between breaking and breaking, and the meaning was very similar. However, it was a completely different concept. Deciphering mirrored flowers, reflected moon meant that one only needed to find the principles and flaws of reflected moon's mirrored flowers, reflected moon's movement. It was very difficult, but it was not completely impossible. As long as one's insight was strong enough, it was possible. Not to mention that it was absolutely impossible. There was once an existence who had done this, but that was the only one so far. It was the Lord who was above the water lotus protector, the brain-eating bug, and all the other big and small spirit beasts. Apart from the Lord, it couldn't imagine anyone else who could do this. Even the intelligent human in front of it couldn't do it. After all, the difference in strength between them was too great. This was not something that could be done through trickery. However, if it wasn't for breaking it, how could all this be explained now? It doesn't matter if you don't believe me, but as the host, I still have to say hello. Welcome to my world. Lin Yi bowed politely. Your world. The water lotus protector and Duanmuyu spoke almost in unison this time. What was going on? This was clearly the mirror world just now. How did it inexplicably become his world? However, they quickly understood because the mirror world was instantly dismembered and shattered, collapsing with a loud bang. What did you say just now? In your mirror world, you're the unique master. I'm sorry to borrow it, but now it's my world and I'm the only master here. Lin Yi said with a chuckle. His words were very pretentious, even more so than the water lotus protector just now. However, with this shocking scene as a foil, neither Duanmuyu nor the water lotus protector felt that he was pretentious at all. Instead, they felt that he was speaking the truth. In particular, the water lotus protector was far more shocked than Duanmuyu at this moment. One must know that even if the moon's mirror image was broken, the remaining mirror world was still real. Moreover, because his main body was residing in it, this was the one with the strongest control over all the mirror worlds. In the end, this most secure mirror world collapsed in an instant right under his nose. He didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. This kind of shock and horror was simply unparalleled. Who are you? The water lotus protector was no longer calm. At this moment, the way he looked at Lin Yi was no longer condescending and contemptuous. Instead, it was filled with unprecedented fear. I am me, Lin Yi replied. And then? The water lotus protector continued to ask. Lin Yi tilted his head and thought for a moment. Suddenly he said, are they fireworks of different colors? Chapter 5267. Could it be that you've already mastered the laws of the world? A thought flashed through the water lily's mind. Lin Yi had just destroyed its mirror world. Now that it thought about it, it was clear that he had used another physical world to directly crush its illusory mirror world. Apart from this unverifiable legend, it could not think of any other possibility for someone to be able to do this. What are the laws of the world? Lin Yi was stunned by the water lily's question. Aren't they? The water lily was stunned as well. Duan Muyu, who was at the side, was confused. What were these two talking about? You can tell me. Maybe it is. Lin Yi was rather interested in this term that he had never heard of before. I must have been mistaken. It's just an illusory legend. There are no laws of the world at all. You must have used some evil method that cannot see the light of day. That must be it. The water lily hurriedly corrected itself. You're even trying to provoke me. Since you want to know so much, I'll be merciful and tell you. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, this space is the world that I control. I don't know what the laws of the world are, but in this space I can divide it into as many pieces as I want. It was just a thought of mine to dismember your mirror world. This was not a lie. To put it bluntly, Lin Yi had actually kept it in the space of his jade pendant. Although he was its master in name, Lin Yi actually only had the simplest method to control the space of the jade pendant, which was to divide the space. However, it was this simple and brainless method that could produce fatal power at this time. Crushing the water lily's mirror world was just a piece of cake. If Lin Yi really wanted to try, it would probably be easy for him to dismember the water lily itself. How did you get me in here? The water lily was still skeptical. It still hoped that this was Lin Yi's bluff. If that was the case, it would still have a chance to turn the tables. Otherwise, if it was really as Lin Yi said, it would really be at his mercy. Oh, didn't you say it yourself? You're just an elixir. This place of mine may not be very convenient for other things, but it is very accurate for collecting spiritual herbs. To put it bluntly, it is the absolute nemesis of existences like you. Seeing that you did not directly kill me just now, I advise you to quickly accept your fate. That way you will be able to suffer less physical pain. Lin Yi chuckled. This was where Lin Yi's confidence came from. No matter how invincible the water lily was, as long as it was a plant, it was destined to be easily taken into the space of the jade pendant. Once it entered the space of the jade pendant, it would be Lin Yi's territory, so there was nothing to be afraid of. The water lily also knew that the situation was not good, but it would not be so easily frightened. Even if the moonlight reflection, which it was most proud of, had been completely broken, it still had the rippleless ancient well. No matter where and when it would be invincible. Most importantly, its strength was at least 10 levels higher than that of Lin Yi. What was there for it to be afraid of? Human, you're too naive. You want me to accept my fate just like that? Why should I? The water lily sneered. Taking advantage of the moment when Lin Yi was distracted, it did not hesitate to launch a sneak attack. 4 doppelgangers attacked Lin Yi at the same time. Although the strength of these doppelgangers was not enough to deal with a powerful existence like the brain-eating insect, it was enough to deal with Lin Yi. Seeing this scene, Duan Muyu's heart suddenly jumped to her throat. Things had developed to this point, and she thought that she could breathe a sigh of relief. She did not expect the water lily to launch a sneak attack without any grace. It seemed that she was really desperate. In the end, in the face of all this, Lin Yi did not move at all. He did not even blink. The opponent's 4 doppelgangers could not get close to him at all. With just a thought, they were isolated in a separate space. No matter how they struggled, it was futile. Again, in this space, Lin Yi was the only master. The water lily was instantly dumbfounded, but it still did not believe it. This time, its entire body turned into a human form, and it pounced on Lin Yi like a madman. Unfortunately, the result was the same as its 4 doppelgangers. No matter how hard it struggled, it could not break out of the isolated space that Lin Yi had drawn out for it. Idiot, weren't you very arrogant just now? Seeing this, Lin Yi thought playfully. Up until now, the opponent had been playing with him and Duan Muyu in the palm of its hand. Now it was time to change positions. How could this be? The water lily used all of its means, but it still could not move. This time, even if it did not give up, there was nothing it could do. The key was that it had finally confirmed one thing. This was actually a real physical space. Just thinking about the meaning behind it made one shudder. Its background was even more terrifying than that of the Lord. Who was this human? Looking at this guy who was panting, Lin Yi smiled without saying a word. He thought to himself that it was fortunate that he had such a jade pendant space, which was just enough to eat the opponent to death. Otherwise, he really would not be able to do anything to this guy, and he would really be in trouble today. On the other hand, Duan Muyu, who was at the side, did not understand what was going on. The image of Lin Yi in her mind had become extremely unfathomable. He had all kinds of magical methods and it was really hard to fathom. You shameless adulterers. Don't go too far. The water lily pointed at Lin Yi and Duan Muyu in exasperation. Go too far? Isn't that a bit too much? Since you treated us like this just now, I'll do the same to you now. It's just locking you up. I haven't even sliced you up to study you yet. You're still far from going too far. Take your time. Lin Yi said calmly. Slicing me up to study me? The water lily was so shocked that its eyelids twitched. If it was before, it would not have taken such shameless and stupid words seriously. But now it could not. In its eyes, Lin Yi was a legendary existence who could control space. If he really wanted to slice it up, it would probably only take a thought. That's right. From the perspective of elixirs, you're a rare treasure in this world. You can probably sell for a sky-high price after you're sliced, Lin Yi threatened with a smile. Hee. Chapter 5268. Plead with me? Duan Muyu pointed at herself in surprise and spread out her hands in amusement. Are you sure you didn't find the wrong person? I didn't create this space. It's not up to me to say what he wants to do. What's the use of pleading with me? It's useful. It's definitely useful. You're his woman. In order to save you, he didn't hesitate to risk his life. It can be seen that you hold a very important position in his heart. Your words will definitely work. Madam, please save me. The water lotus protector begged for mercy. What nonsense are you talking about? Duan Muyu frowned. She knew very well that Lin Yi had stayed behind to deal with the water lotus protector, not for her. Even if he had the intention to save her, it would only be a supplementary reason, and definitely not the main purpose. At this time Lin Yi suddenly smiled and said, Since you've said so, then I might as well tell you something. Do you know what happened to those guys who fought with me for a woman? Oh, how was it? The water lotus protector asked weakly. There are countless of them. Some lost their lives, some lost their family jewels, and some twisted their worldview to become neither human nor ghost. Which one do you think you are? Anyway, I'm a good person. Heroes have a weakness for beauties. Usually I'm very easy to talk to, but once someone fights with me for a woman, I can't do it. To be honest, when I go crazy, even I'm afraid of myself. Lin Yi said casually with a serious expression. The water lotus protector didn't know whether he was talking nonsense or telling the truth. Her eyes wandered back and forth between Lin Yi and Duan Muyu. At this time, she was so regretful that even her roots were turning green. Of all the things she could have done, she had to find Duan Muyu on a whim. This time, not only did she not succeed in the dual cultivation, she was about to die. Human. Oh no, senior, I really didn't know that she was your woman at first. Don't you have a saying that the ignorant are innocent? Since I didn't kill you before and I didn't really dual cultivate with her, please spare me this time. The water lotus protector bowed and begged for mercy. Don't spout nonsense. Duan Muyu suddenly blushed. She didn't know if it was because she was shy when she heard the word dual cultivation, or because she was called Lin Yi's woman. With her usual style, this kind of girlish expression could be regarded as unprecedented. The water lily wanted to argue, but Lin Yi didn't give it the chance. Of course he didn't get rid of it either. Instead he isolated it and locked it up. Then he took Duan Muyu's soul and left the space in the jade pendant. The moonlight in the mirror had been broken, and the water lily protector was also locked up. After the two of them came out, they naturally returned to the real world, and Duan Muyu's primordial spirit naturally returned to his main body. The big tent was still the same big tent, and the scene in front of him was still the same. However, after wandering in so many mirror worlds for so long, even Duan Muyu could clearly feel the difference. Even if every place was exactly the same, the real world obviously gave people a more realistic feeling. No matter how realistic the mirror world was, it was still an illusion, and could never create this unique feeling of reality. However, Duan Muyu was still a little worried. He was afraid that this was another mirror world that was more realistic. When he walked out of the big tent and saw the big and small spirit beasts outside, he finally relaxed. After all, the mirror world did not have these guys. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. I'm finally back. It's illusory and real at the same time. Feels like a nightmare. Hee, nightmares will always wake up one day. Lin Yi laughed. Duan Muyu glanced at him and said gratefully, but if it wasn't for you, this nightmare might never wake up. This time I really want to thank you. Don't mention it. We both took what we needed. Lin Yi shook his head. He did not deal with the water lily entirely for Duan Muyu. He was just afraid that this guy would find cold in the others and lead the brain-eating insect to them. Still, I have to thank you, Duan Muyu said seriously. No matter what Lin Yi's motive was, it was a fact that he had saved her. Duan Muyu was never an ungrateful person, and she had to remember this favor. While the two were talking, a patrol bee flew over and looked up and down at Lin Yi. Who are you? Why are you with my madam? Well, in the words of your master, your madam and I are adulterers, Lin Yi said mischievously. Duan Muyu could not help but blush when she heard this. She glared at Lin Yi reproachfully, but in her heart she was smiling. Previously, she only thought that Lin Yi was unfathomable, but she did not expect him to have a joking temper. Adulterer? The patrol bee took a long time to understand the meaning of these words. It immediately attracted all the other patrol bees around them. They surrounded Lin Yi and Duan Muyu and said aggressively, How dare you? How dare you make my master a cuckold? Everyone, let's tear this adulterer into pieces. As for the madam, master will deal with her personally. The group of patrol bees was about to attack, but Lin Yi smiled faintly. Wait, aren't you going to ask what happened to your master? As soon as these words came out, the group of patrol bees was stunned and looked at each other. Yes, shouldn't master stay in the big tent and cultivate with the madam? Why didn't master do anything when this pair of adulterers escaped from inside? With the usual cruel style of the water lily, they did not think that their master would be so lenient to the point of being indifferent to being cuckolded, unless, thinking of this, the group of patrol bees were all shocked, but then they immediately threw this absurd idea out of their minds. Master was the guardian of that lord, a powerful existence that was second only to one and above tens of thousands of people. How could he fail miserably because of a mere human? But if that was not the case, how could there be no reaction at all? At this time, a weak voice suddenly sounded from behind. Not good. Master must have been killed by them. This human is very scary, he almost killed me with a single look just now. All the patrol bees turned around and saw that the one who spoke was Kappa. To them, Kappa was one of their own, so they didn't doubt him at all. Kappa's strength wasn't much weaker than them, but this human almost killed Kappa with just a glance. This was something that even their master couldn't do. Chapter 5269. Lin Yi looked at Kappa playfully. It seemed that this guy had been holding a grudge against Protector Water Lotus for a long time. It was obvious that he wanted to see the world in chaos by saying such words. However, it was not surprising. The Kappa clan had been destroyed by Protector Water Lotus, and the Holy Water Bead, the clan's most precious treasure, had been taken away. It would be strange if Kappa did not bear a grudge against him. Master is dead. Everyone run. Kappa was the first to take the lead to escape. The rest of the patrol bees were also frightened when they saw this. After looking at each other, they turned around and fled without hesitation, no longer caring about anything else. Their hatred for their master, Protector Water Lotus, was not far from the hatred of the extermination of Kappa's clan. Just because of a casual word from Protector Water Lotus, they would kill each other. They only feared such a master, and would never have the slightest bit of loyalty. Just a little instigation would naturally cause a disaster to befall them and they would flee. With Kappa and the patrol bees as an example, the other slave-like spirit beasts also fled with a loud bang. In the blink of an eye, only Lin Yi and Duan Muyu were left looking at each other speechlessly. However, this was also good. It saved them a lot of trouble. Although with Lin Yi's strength he would not care about these spirit beasts, they were still a small problem. This time it was solved by Kappa with a few words, so he had to give it a thumbs up. After a moment of silence, Duan Muyu suddenly asked, What happened just now? You mean that Kappa? It was talking nonsense. I can kill it with one look. I'm not a god. Lin Yi laughed. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what's going on with that strange space earlier. Why was my primordial spirit brought in and even that guy was completely suppressed? Duan Muyu asked. This question had been in her heart for a long time, but she could not ask it in front of Protector Water Lotus. Now that there was no one around, she really could not hold it in anymore. About that. Lin Yi couldn't help but hesitate. Just now, he was afraid that leaving Duan Muyu alone would cause problems, so he took the opportunity to bring her soul into the space of the jade pendant. But this was one of his core secrets and he absolutely could not reveal it to outsiders. After today's incident, although Duan Muyu could be regarded as a life-and-death friend of his, it was not to the extent that he could absolutely trust his own people. He didn't dare to reveal this to the other party. Seeing his hesitation, Duan Muyu knew that this matter could not be easily disclosed to her. However, she had always been a person who would get to the bottom of things and never let sand in her eyes. If this matter was not cleared up, she was afraid that she would worry about it for the rest of her life. It might even become a knot in his heart that would negatively affect his future cultivation. Didn't you say I'm your woman? Don't tell me you can't even tell your woman about this? Duan Muyu suddenly blushed. Lin Yi suddenly choked and couldn't help but look up and down at Duan Muyu strangely. He saw that although the other party's face was slightly red, her expression was quite calm, as if she had already gotten over it. Being stared at by Lin Yi at such a close distance, although Duan Muyu was a heroine, her heart couldn't help but pound, and a strange thought suddenly flashed through her mind. Could this be the legendary feeling of being hit by a deer? What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Duan Muyu stared back at Lin Yi, unwilling to be outdone. I'm sorry about that. I just said that to annoy that guy. Don't take it to heart. Lin Yi couldn't help but scratch his head awkwardly. At that time when he said this, he didn't think it through and said it casually. Now that he thought about it, it was too abrupt. This was also because Duan Muyu was more open-minded, otherwise, it would be very awkward for other women. So I've misunderstood? Duan Muyu looked at him deeply and said with a somewhat complicated expression, Alright, since that's the case, how about we make a deal? A deal? What kind of deal? Lin Yi was stunned. Didn't you want to know about rejuvenation of withered leaf? I can explain the essence of this move to you. In return, you have to tell me what's going on in that space just now. How about that? Duan Muyu suggested. Isn't rejuvenation of withered leaf a secret move of your Yiling sect? Lin Yi was surprised. According to the ancestral teachings, rejuvenation of withered leaf can't be taught to outsiders. However, our Yiling sect has always been clear about gratitude and grudges. Since you saved me, I can make an exception this time, Duan Muyu said. If one were to think about it carefully, her words might not hold water. Even if she wanted to repay Lin Yi for saving her life, she didn't have to tell him the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaf. She could have used other methods. However, she was the eldest senior sister of the Yiling sect. According to the Yiling sect's rules, as long as one's strength increased by one level, they would be the next sect leader. Even if she did that, the higher-ups of the sect wouldn't do anything to her. What if I'm a blabbermouth and spread the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaf? Lin Yi asked. Rejuvenation of withered leaf was a trump card for the entire Yiling sect. Probably only the most core disciples in the sect had the opportunity to cultivate it. If word got out and people studied it and targeted it, the consequences would be unimaginable. Duan Muyu looked at him deeply and said with certainty, You won't. Alright, since you trust me so much, then I'll do as you say. Lin Yi smiled. Aren't you afraid that I'll spread your secret? Duan Muyu asked. You won't. Lin Yi returned her words. Although they weren't very familiar with each other, a person's nature could be seen in a life-and-death situation. Just like how Duan Muyu trusted him, he also believed that Duan Muyu wasn't a despicable person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Duan Muyu's primordial spirit in without hesitation. Actually, from that moment onwards, he had already revealed his secret to Duan Muyu without holding anything back. Duan Muyu blushed slightly when she heard that. As the eldest senior sister of the Yiling sect, the number of times she blushed today was more than the number of times she had blushed in the past 10 years combined. Even she found it a little strange. She kept blushing for no reason. Was she having a fever? But I'll say this first. I can only tell you the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaf, but I won't tell you the method to cultivate it. Is that all right? Duan Muyu tossed aside the random thoughts in her mind and returned to the topic at hand. Although it was very troublesome for the essence to be leaked, if there was no method to cultivate it, then at least it could ensure that others wouldn't be able to cultivate rejuvenation of withered leaf for a short period of time. That way, the sect's trump card wouldn't have to be used on their own people. Chapter 5270. Alright, the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaves is only one thing, and that is to open the hidden door of life, Duan Muyu said slowly. The hidden door of life? Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Do you know that all the mental cultivation methods and moves of our leaf spirit sect come from the same source? They all originate from the most ordinary yet most extraordinary thing in the world. Duan Muyu enlightened him. Leaf? Lin Yi's eyes lit up. This was not difficult to guess. The name of the leaf spirit sect explained everything. Moreover, all its representative moves had the word leaf in them, such as the falling leaves signifying autumn, a leaf like a mountain, and the rejuvenation of withered leaves. That's right, it's a leaf. The birth of a leaf and the fall of a leaf represent the reincarnation of the world. When people see a green leaf, they will see vitality, and when they see a withered leaf, they will see death. However, they don't know that the two reinforce and counteract each other. A green leaf can also have a killing intent, and a withered leaf can also have a day of rejuvenation. At this point, Duan Muyu paused, took out a withered yellow leaf from his arms, and handed it to Lin Yi. Feel it. Lin Yi took the withered leaf and looked at it for a while. It was different from what he had expected. There was nothing unusual on it, nor was there any hidden spiritual energy. This was just an ordinary withered leaf. However, after thinking about Duan Muyu's words for a while, Lin Yi suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Do you mean that there is vitality on this withered leaf that ordinary people can't see? When Duan Muyu heard this, a surprised expression immediately appeared on his face. This guy's comprehension ability was a little too abnormal. When he first obtained the withered leaf, it took him an entire day to understand this principle. Compared to other disciples of the same sect, this was considered fast. Some people could spend an entire month trying to understand it but still couldn't understand it. They didn't even have the qualifications to practice withered leaf rejuvenation. Of course, after witnessing the entire process of Lin Yi cracking the mirror world just now, Duan Muyu was not too surprised by this. Comprehension was closely related to insight. For a person like Lin Yi who had extremely abnormal insight, his comprehension would naturally not be weak. That's right. Although the leaf has withered, it's not really dead. There's still a strong vitality hidden in it. It's just that it's temporarily sealed because of the environment. As long as we can open this sealed door of vitality, it will be able to regain its vitality, which is the withered leaf that you saw earlier, Duan Muyu explained. Lin Yi nodded. These words were not difficult to understand. Lin Yi was saying that when a person was exhausted, it seemed that he had reached his limit, but in fact, it was just an instinctive self-defense mechanism of the human body. He was not really at the point of exhaustion. Then how do we open this sealed door of life? Lin Yi asked. This was the crux of the problem. Duan Muyu was silent for a moment and said, you only need to do two things. One is to hypnotize yourself, and the other is to use your true qi to pierce the acupoints. Strictly speaking, her words had already pointed out the cultivation method. She could not say anything more. Otherwise, it would be tantamount to personally teaching Lin Yi to practice the withered leaf rejuvenation. Even if she was the eldest senior sister of Yi Ling's sect, she did not have this right. However, Lin Yi did not need her to say more at all. With Lin Yi's comprehension, these two sentences were enough. As for what to do next, he could completely rely on himself to figure it out, and there was no need to put Duan Muyu in a difficult position. Thank you. Lin Yi cupped his hands and thanked her. He asked this purely for reference research because he had not tried it before. At the moment, he did not know how much value he could dig out from it. However, one thing was certain. What she said was indeed profound and worth pondering. Now can you tell me about you? Duan Muyu said with great anticipation. Well, as you saw just now, I have a private space. As long as I think about it, I can easily put things in the real world, but only plants and some ordinary items. As for humans, I can't. Of course, the primordial spirit can go in. Lin Yi explained. As for how this space came about, he could not elaborate. After all, on the one hand it was related to his life experience, and on the other hand he only heard it from Lin Dongfang. He did not know much about it. Private space. Even though Duan Muyu had seen it with her own eyes, she was still stunned when she heard this word at this time. This kind of thing had never been heard of or seen before. Perhaps even the old monsters in the Yuanying realm in the remote ancient Jianghu did not have such an artifact. He could not help but be surprised and confused. Who the hell are you? Lin Yi could not help but roll his eyes. The water lotus protector had such a reaction, and Duan Muyu also had such a reaction. He had to be patient and said, I'm not a saint. I'm just a lump of primordial spirit. Are you really just a primordial senior of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island? Duan Muyu did not believe it and questioned. But why are your moves completely different from those of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island? They're not the same at all. From the remote ancient Jianghu to the present, the time span was too long. Even if it was passed down from the same sect, there would inevitably be a lot of changes in the mental cultivation methods and moves, but it would not be completely different. It was almost equivalent to setting up a new sect. The three sects of the North Island were recognized as the sects with the most historical inheritance in the remote ancient Jianghu. In the records, there had never been a major disaster such as the extermination of the whole sect, so it was impossible for there to be such a big deviation in the inheritance of the most basic mental cultivation methods and moves. There could only be two explanations. One was that Lin Yi had learned too many things and formed his own sect. The other was that Lin Yi was not the primordial senior of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island at all. Yi Ling's sect paid the most attention to the instinctive perception in the subconscious. As the eldest senior sister of Yi Ling's sect, Duan Muyu was naturally second to none in this aspect. A woman's intuition was very accurate, and her intuition was far above most women's. Her intuition told her that Lin Yi should belong to the latter, because Lin Yi did not look like an ancient primordial senior at all. He should be a real young man, and his real age was very likely to be much younger than her. "Oh, I've never been one," Lin Yi said honestly. "Huh. Then why do they all call you Martial Granduncle?" Duan Muyu said in surprise. If it was those ordinary disciples of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island who admitted it, they were relatively easy to be deceived. But Enchanted was a master in the gold core stage. How could Lin Yi deceive him? It's a long story. Although I'm not their real Martial Granduncle, we do have this connection. It's not wrong for them to call me Martial Granduncle. Lin Yi smiled. Since they had come to this point, he might as well make it clear. He said, "You know Heaven Stage Island, right?" Chapter 5271. Well, I can tell you that the Heaven Stage Island really exists because I came back from the Heaven Stage Island. Lin Yi said frankly. There was no need to hide this kind of thing because even if he didn't say it himself, someone could find out the whole story from other cultivators in the secular world. There was no way to hide it at all. Is that true? Duan Muyu was completely stunned. The impact of Lin Yi's words was even greater than the space of the jade pendant, because it almost subverted the worldview that she had cultivated since she was a child. The Heaven Stage Island that only appeared in the legends actually existed. After she digested it for a while, Lin Yi continued, "I went to the Heaven Stage Island from the secular world and joined the sect Blue Cloud Pavilion of the North Island. It should be the same sect as the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island of the small archaic Jianghu of the far ancient Jianghu, and its inheritance is more complete and more powerful. Therefore to Enchanted and the others, I'm naturally called Granduncle Master." Granduncle Xn doesn't know about this? Duan Muyu asked. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Lin Yi said non-committally. Enchanted definitely didn't know at the beginning, but after so many months, if he wanted to inquire about Lin Yi, it should not be difficult for him to find out about Lin Yi's situation. He just didn't know why he didn't say it. Of course, whether for Enchanted or the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island, it didn't matter whether Lin Yi was the real archaic Granduncle Master or not. What mattered was that he knew the complete advanced version of the mental cultivation method of their sect, which alone made him worthy of being called Granduncle Master. Well, it's really an eye-opener today. Duan Muyu let out a long breath. She was a little confused now. These things couldn't be digested without a few days, especially the Heaven Stage Island. She could only accept it slowly. By the way, what are you going to do next? Lin Yi asked. Of course I'm going to the River of Divine Senses, Duan Muyu said. Before this, she still wanted to wander around looking for treasures of heaven and earth, but now she had completely given up on this idea. Water Lily Protector alone could easily control her life and death. Now there was a large number of powerful spirit beasts including the brain-eating bug, and even an even more terrifying and mysterious lord outside. Wandering around alone was tantamount to courting death. Therefore, her only thought now was to find the River of Divine Senses to refine her divine senses and then quickly leave this troublesome place. After a pause, Duan Muyu asked, "What about you?" After a pause, Duan Muyu asked, "What about you?" But this place is so big it's easier said than done to find them. Why don't we go to the River of Spiritual Knowledge together? I think Cold and the others must also be heading in the direction of the River of Spiritual Knowledge. In theory yes, but I have a simpler method. Before Duan Muyu could ask, Qin Fan said. Lin Yi grinned meaningfully, then his figure flashed and disappeared. After a while, he reappeared, but there was a familiar figure beside him. It was Water Lily Protector. Duan Muyu jumped in fright. There was no doubt that the water lily was powerful, and it was only because of Lin Yi's jade space that he was able to suppress it so tightly. Now that it had escaped, wouldn't it be releasing a tiger back into the mountains? But to her surprise, the water lily didn't do anything after coming out, and just stood there obediently. It just stood there obediently with a bitter look on its face. Lin Yi smiled, "Don't worry, this is just a clone. Its main body is still trapped by me. If it dares to do anything, its main body will immediately die. It won't dare to do anything. Duanmuyu carefully looked at Water Lily Protector and saw that it was really scared like a quail. She shook her head speechlessly. Water Lily Protector was a powerful existence, but now it had been turned into such a state by Lin Yi. It was more than just a mess, it was a little pitiful. Why did you get it out? Duanmuyu asked. Isn't it known to be able to control every blade of grass and every tree on the ground? Since the brain-eating bug can get it to help, I can naturally do it too. I asked it to find Lung Lung and the others. If it can't find them, I'll kill it. Lin Yi said and pouted at Water Lily Protector, urging, What are you waiting for? Hurry up. Yes. Water Lily Protector nodded quickly. It had no choice but to lower its head. Its life was now completely in the hands of Lin Yi, so it had no choice but to obey him. Duanmuyu couldn't help but feel amused and speechless. It was really unlucky for the Water Lily Protector to meet such a big nemesis like Lin Yi. After a while, Water Lily Protector said cautiously, I found them. They are approaching the river of divine knowledge, but soon they will encounter a spirit beast comparable to the early stage of Gold Core. They should encounter a lot of trouble. The early stage of Gold Core? Lin Yi frowned. With the strength of Lung Lung and the others, although it was not completely impossible to deal with a spirit beast of this level, it was indeed a big challenge. He immediately said, Take us there. The implication was that Duanmuyu was also included, and Duanmuyu had no intention of objecting. Anyway, they were all heading in the direction of the river of divine knowledge. She was also happy to go with Lin Yi, so she could be his companion. The two immediately returned to the outside world through the tree-hole sky ladder. All they saw was the familiar primeval forest. However, as soon as Lin Yi's figure appeared at the entrance of the tree-hole, a surprised voice immediately came from the side, Senior. Senior Lin. Lin Yi heard the voice and looked over. The voice was none other than Fei Yangxing, who had been released earlier. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. Why are you still here? I don't dare to go around, so I just stayed here and waited for you to come out. Fei Yangxing rubbed his hands and smiled apologetically. This was the truth. It was not that he didn't want to go, but he really didn't dare to go around. With his strength, he didn't need to be like Water Lily Protector at all. Any spirit beast in the late stage of Foundation establishment would kill him. It was safer to hold on to Lin Yi. Oh, aren't you afraid that I can't defeat those spirit beasts? Lin Yi was amused. Fei Yangxing was taking a risk by doing this. If he didn't wait for him but other spirit beasts, wouldn't he become a tribute? No. Senior, you are so powerful. I believe you will definitely be fine. Fei Yangxing hurriedly flattered. In fact, he simply felt that Lin Yi was a spirit that came and went without a trace. Even if he couldn't defeat the other party, it would definitely be no problem for him to stay alive. Besides, he was quite confident in his hiding method, so he dared to stay. Chapter 5272. Although you're not a very good person, you made the right bet. Duanmuyu, who had followed Lin Yi out, could not help but smile when he heard this. Senior Sister Duanmu, you're safe and sound too. That's great. Fei Yangxing hurriedly nodded and bowed to greet them, but in the next moment he saw the water lotus climbing out behind the two of them. His eyes suddenly widened and he screamed, turned around and ran away. However, after running a few steps, he realized that no one was chasing after him. He turned around and saw that Lin Yi and Duanmuyu were looking at him strangely, while the water lotus was standing behind them obediently. Fei Yangxing finally reacted. He scratched his head awkwardly and asked with a smile, This is my new little brother. Lin Yi casually made up a story. Duanmuyu was amused, while the water lotus dared not say anything. I'm just trapped by you. When did I become your little brother? Fei Yangxing did not know the inside story, and he was immediately in awe. Although he had never seen magical techniques like the moon's reflection and the old well's rippleness, the water lotus was the leader of all the spirit beasts present. To him, it was a powerful existence that he could only look up to. Lin Yi was actually able to subdue such an existence. He was indeed remarkable. Senior is indeed a senior. You're too powerful. Fei Yangxing hurriedly squeezed out an expression of admiration. He then rubbed himself to the side and said to the water lotus, Hello, brother spirit beast. My name is Fei Yangxing. From now on we'll be on the same path. Please take care of me. Trash. The water lotus snorted with extreme disdain. He turned his head away and could not be bothered with this kind of trash. If it was not under the control of someone else, Fei Yangxing would have been crushed to death by a single finger. Fei Yangxing was rebuffed, but he did not feel embarrassed. He turned his head and continued to flatter Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi was the one with the thick thighs. As long as he pleased Lin Yi, everything else could be discussed. They surrounded Lin Yi and followed him around, trying their best to flatter him. Even Duanmu could not stand it anymore. He frowned and said, "Aren't you annoying?" Fei Yangxing could only smile bitterly. He didn't want to do this, but what if Lin Yi thought he was a burden and dumped him if he didn't suck up to Lin Yi? How was he supposed to survive in a forest like this where danger lurked everywhere? "Alright, don't waste your energy. I don't like that kind of thing here. If you want to follow me, then follow me. Just don't cause me any trouble." Lin Yi curled his lips. Although he did not treat Fei Yangxing as one of his own, and he did not trust Fei Yangxing as much as Duanmu. After all, the latter could be regarded as a life-and-death friend. He was not so cruel as to leave Fei Yangxing behind and follow him. At the same time, just as Water Lily said, Cold and the others encountered a big problem. A giant black praying mantis that was as tall as two people blocked in front of them. A golden core stage spirit beast. Lung Lung quickly shielded Ling Shan and the others behind her. Her heart skipped a beat as she felt the ferocious aura coming from the enemy. They had been on the road for days. On the way they met another 5 or 6 spirit beasts that blocked the way. Including Lung Lung, everyone wasn't in a good state. Their stamina, chi and spirit were all used up. Especially Ying Ziyu, who got injured from a Foundation Establishment stage spirit beast last time. She hadn't fully recovered yet. But that time wasn't entirely Ziyu's fault. It was a dangerous situation, and they were surrounded by 2 spirit beasts. If it wasn't for her trying her best to buy time for Cold and the others, they might not even be able to make it out alive. One could only say that this place was just too dangerous, and without Lin Yi's protection, every second they stood here was a risk. If they could make it out of here alive, they would all be reborn. It wasn't just Ziyu. Ling Shan and the others were all injured as well. Now they met a giant praying mantis that was as strong as a golden core stage. Even if the other party was only the weakest early gold core stage, it was definitely a fatal matter. What do we do? Everyone looked at Lung Lung in unison. Lung Lung was the strongest among them, and she had shown sufficient courage and responsibility in the past few days. Everyone had great trust in her. Even if they could not say that they would blindly follow her lead, she would definitely not go back on her word at critical moments. Kill? Lung Lung spat out fiercely and her aura changed. She had the aura of iron and blood now. Her soft body stood in front of the praying mantis without hesitation, not backing down. Kill. 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 Ling Shan and the others roared in unison, their auras merging into one. The defensive formation Lin Yi had taught them was just a show a couple of days ago, but now it looked like it had reached a certain level of mastery. Life and death battles were the most motivating, and the saying wasn't wrong at all. Huff, a bunch of human scum like ants dares to challenge me? Where did you get the guts from? The praying mantis didn't have any expression on its insect face, but the mockery was obvious. It didn't care about Lung Lung at all. It's just a praying mantis, but it's quite arrogant. Qintian grinned. You can't say that. It has some ability to be arrogant. After all, it's not easy for a praying mantis to grow this big. Who knows how many dirty things it ate to absorb so much nutrition? Fatty Lai chimed in with a smile. That's right. Such a big praying mantis looks very scary. Judging from its voice, it seems to be a male. In the future, the wedding night will be the time of its death. According to their customs, it will be eaten by the bride. How miserable. That's right. Yu Bing and the others all chimed in. It was hard to not be nervous in front of a strong enemy, and they were using this method to calm themselves down. They didn't want to make any mistakes later. Bullshit. You're talking about normal praying mantises. I'm the king mantis. How can I be eaten by a female praying mantis? The praying mantis was pissed off, and it couldn't care less about the mockery anymore. It waved its 2 scythe-like front limbs and charged at them. It didn't look fast, but its body was long and its strides were long. With just 3 steps, it crossed a distance of 10 meters and it arrived in front of Lung Lung. Its scythe-like front limbs turned into 2 black lightning bolts, and the speed of the attack was so fast that it created a sonic boom. Lung Lung was the first one to be attacked. Chapter 5273. Lung Lung did not dare to be negligent. She did not hold back at all. Before her opponent's scythe-like forelimbs slashed down vertically, she used her most powerful ice prison mirror without hesitation. Her surroundings were suddenly filled with extreme coldness. Her opponent's two black sides that were closest to her were instantly covered with a layer of ice crystals. Even his movements were significantly slower. Insects were creatures that were extremely afraid of the cold, and mantises were no exception. Even this black praying mantis, which was comparable to a golden core practitioner, had the weakest resistance to the cold. From a certain perspective, it was countered by Lung Lung's ice shatter physique. This was because of the difference in levels, and once Lung Lung broke through to golden core, it wouldn't be a threat at all. It was a pity that Lung Lung was only at foundation completion, and the ice prison mirror didn't freeze her completely. It only slowed the black praying mantis down by more than 70%. That was more than enough. Lung Lung took the chance to retreat and blend into the formation, using herself as the arrow. Third strategy. Understood. Everyone replied. What Lin Yi gave them was a typical defensive formation, but it wasn't a turtle shell that only defended and didn't attack. There were a few different strategies, and the third strategy was to move around and pin down the enemy. Defending passively would only put them at a disadvantage. Using offense as defense, moving around when the opportunity presented itself was even more invulnerable. With Lung Lung as the arrow, Lingshan, Wu Qintian, Yu Bing and the others as the backbone, and Ziyu and the others as backup, this formation was much more powerful than what they had on paper. None of them were burdens and all of them were important members. This was especially true now that the ice prison mirror's effect was so strong that the black praying mantises, which were brimming with murderous intent, suddenly slowed down. Everyone was like fish in water as they moved around the black praying mantises. Every time they attacked they would retreat, and every time they attacked they would leave. They didn't give the black praying mantises any chance to retaliate. Even when the black praying mantis tried to attack, it was blocked by the defense team, unable to hurt them at all. You despicable and shameless human scum. All you know how to do is sneak around, do you dare fight me head on? The black praying mantis was going crazy from anger. Although the power of each of their attacks was far from being strong. However, its carapace was much weaker than usual after being frozen by the ice prison mirror. Every time it was struck, it would leave behind a few shallow wounds. One or two would be fine, but ants could bite an elephant to death. Even the slightest injury would be fatal if it accumulated for too long. What's more, the damage caused by the crowd could only be considered small, but it wasn't so small that it was negligible. Idiot. This is called human intelligence. Qintian grinned. They were very familiar with this tactic, and almost all the spirit beasts blocking their way were killed this way. It seemed that it was also effective against golden core spirit beasts. Although they dilly 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 d. Everyone pick up the pace. I have a bad feeling about this, Lung Lung said softly. Using the wandering tactic would inevitably lead to a protracted battle. Based on previous experience, there was only one result, and that was when the opponent suffered enough and escaped. In order to maintain the formation, they did not have the ability to chase after them. Of course, this wasn't a bad outcome for the group. After all, if they really forced the enemy to a dead end, it would definitely struggle at all costs, and they might have to pay the price of death. Other than that, there was another risk. That was, a long delay would bring trouble. Just like last time, they were only facing a complete Foundation establishment spirit beast. They could have easily taken it down, but because of the long delay, they attracted another late-stage Foundation establishment spirit beast. Being surrounded from both front and back, Lung Lung had a bad feeling about this, and now that feeling appeared again. Hearing Lung Lung's words, everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they picked up the pace with all their might. They only wanted to chase this black praying mantis away as soon as possible. In the blink of an eye, the black praying mantis's leg armor had a few wounds, and it was broken by Lung Lung's kick. Although losing a leg didn't affect it as much as a human, it still scared the hell out of it, a bunch of lunatics. In order to break its leg, Lung Lung's group paid the price of 2 people, including Yu Bing, getting injured. This was completely different from the way they fought just now. They were basically exchanging injury for injury, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were lunatics. Unfortunately, the black praying mantis was an existence comparable to a golden core spirit beast, and the way they fought would only make it angry. Unless they could seriously injure it, it would be impossible to scare it away like this. However, Lung Lung's group didn't slow down their pace, instead they worked together to speed up their pace. They didn't know if their premonition was accurate, but as long as there was a 1 in 10,000 possibility, they couldn't ignore it. They had to chase this black praying mantis away as soon as possible, or else if there were other strong spirit beasts surrounding them and attacked them from both sides, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, most of the time the more impatient one was, the more things would go against one's will. Just like now, Lung Lung's group had increased their pace, but the effect was barely satisfactory. They had paid the price, but they still couldn't make their opponent waver. Instead, they were getting angrier and angrier, and it was getting harder to deal with. We can't go on like this. Lung Lung was anxious. She knew that she had made a huge mistake. She believed that if it was Lin Yi, he wouldn't have sped up his pace and started attacking in such a situation. In the end, she still lacked actual combat experience. She was too green. Lung Lung clenched her teeth. Since Lin Yi had entrusted everyone's safety to her, she had to bring everyone out of here. No matter what kind of danger they were in, she had to shoulder it alone. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.